And so yeah, just
You need to stop. Hold on. Come on.
people here. This is Nigeria. I hope you can hear me.
Okay, let me go John
Give me
something
a few more
too.
minutes.
Let me go John something too quickly here. For the he's in California, and we're going to be joining him right now for this program. Let's go right here, right now. Okay, let's go. Let's go. That's the California side there. Let's go there and see. And
we came in third, ahead of many other politicians who have been there forever. In 6 of the 15 counties, we came in second after only 18 months in politics. It's now 5 or 6 years later. We have made tremendous strides, and again, I go to across the country, and it says we made significant strides, and a lot of old politicians stepped aside and no longer competing. We're going to build a coalition around it. We're offering new ideas. Liberia needs to do things differently. Our country is 175 years old, and yet one of the least developed countries in Africa. I keep saying you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. And that message is resonating with Liberians. So I'm confident because I say so, the facts support it, and the progress we've made supports it as well.
I know you've been endorsed by some women groups, and while reacting to the endorsement, you spoke of a lot of challenges that you would like to fix, like the need for improved schools, better healthcare delivery service, lifting Liberians out of extreme poverty, and so many other issues. But I'd like you to share details, of how you're going to address these challenges.
Sure. So the first thing we have to do to address the challenges is we have to find the resources, the money to do that. Otherwise, it's just talk, as I always say. And so we are going to do the following things to try to find the money. First, we're going to stop the stealing, the corruption, right, and redeploy those resources into these areas we talked about. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on the private sector. So I grew up in the private sector, if you will. I ran Coca-Cola Nigeria, so I'm very familiar with this country. I ran Coca Africa. I had a global responsibility for the company in many functions around the world. So I understand the private sector. I understand how to attract foreign direct investments. I understand what to do to encourage businesses. And through that process, we've generated revenue necessary to invest in education, in healthcare. The other thing we'll do different from what other politicians do is we're going to make choices. We're going to prioritize. We're not going to try to fix everything on day one. Because when you do that, you do a little bit of everything and you do nothing well. And so we're going to focus in education, for example, we're going to focus on teachers training and vocational training. In healthcare, we're going to focus on primary healthcare because what kills most Liberians are very basic things: malaria, typhoid, hypertension. So these are the things we'll do differently, but we'll find the resources, we'll make choices, we'll prioritize, and we'll begin to fix Liberian challenges and problems. We're going to privatize many of our state-run institutions. Because again, governments are meant to create the right environment, not to actually run institutions. So private sector investments is another way we'll fix some of these challenges our country faces today.
All right, well, it seems very well thought out on your part, but let's go to a little bit of the controversial. You were recently exonerated by the courts of charges of forgery and criminal conspiracy. Of course, you maintained your innocence all throughout. And are you of the opinion that somehow the government might be using the court system in a way to suppress those who could be big candidates to go up against the presidency, or is this just something that people are saying?
No, the government will use every means they can to stay in power, including using the court system. The accusations against me were bogus, they were false, and I was exonerated. And by the way, the Solicitor General of Liberia, the chief prosecutor, was the one prosecuting me. This was a misdemeanor, not even a felony, right? But he was prosecuting me, and he's one of the ones that was sanctioned by the U.S. government. And so it says and speaks to the bogus nature of the accusations against me, because one of the reasons why he was sanctioned was because he suppressed, not just in my case, suppressed evidence that exonerated me. So the government has tried to use that means. We believe they will try to use that means, but we're prepared to call them out when they do, because we know Liberians will not accept or tolerate the use of the judiciary to keep politicians from their constitutional right to compete against the president.
All right, you've been very critical of George Oppong and his administration and his style. You've actually called to question his leadership style. You've accused him of mismanaging state resources. If you become president, what would you do differently? Or what approach should the state be taking to ensure Liberia is a better nation than it is right now?
Right. A great question. And by the way, I don't criticize President Weah just because I want to replace him. I do want to replace him. The facts speaks to the criticism. By any objective measure, right? Unemployment, inflation, all your human development indexes are all going backwards. Fact, right? But what will we do different? First of all, we'll restore integrity to the leadership of Liberia. You know, I've had the opportunity to literally manage billions of dollars in my corporate life. Because I always say the best predictor of future behavior, future performance is past behavior, past performance. And so if you look at my past behavior, past performance, you'll see that I've delivered results. I've set goals and achieved them. I've built strong teams. I've managed with integrity. I don't make commitments I can't keep. So we'll do all of these things differently. We'll build the right team of people. We will invest in the right things. We will ensure integrity in governance. We will change the dynamics of how our country has been run historically. And so for all this, I'm the only person running who has had the experience I've had in the private sector. Because I strongly believe that the private sector will be one of the key drivers of change in Liberia. We've been too dependent on this thing called government, and government has a key role to play. But we will make sure we embrace the private sector, create the right environment for the private sector to thrive, create jobs, generate new taxes. We need to invest in tourism in my country. We have 350 kilometers of beaches, so ecotourism can thrive in Liberia. And so we'll do many, many things different, but we'll make choices in terms of how we go about doing that.
This holiday season, celebrate your way at Sprouts Farmers Market.
Now, earlier you talked about stopping the stealing once you get into government, but that sounds very familiar. I mean, almost every African politician wants to fight corruption, and at the end of the day, it's simple. So I'd really like to know how you plan to stop the stealing. How do you plan to fight corruption? How do you plan to tackle security, the security challenges in Liberia, such as armed robbery, lawlessness, just tell us a bit more specifically.
Yeah, so first thing I would say to you is that one of the reasons why corruption thrives, not just in Liberia, and I like the fact you're stealing because corruption makes it sound elegant. People steal, right? They're rogues. It's because there are no consequences for people who commit these acts. And I say to Liberian people, I say to people supporting me, there will be consequences for people who steal Liberian people's money. I also say, as a leader, I will set the example. If you cannot tell folks not to steal if you're corrupt yourself or the people in your immediate circles are corrupt. So we'll make sure that I set the example, people around me set the example, and when people steal, they will be punished. We will go after them. We'll go after their assets. We'll also make sure we make things very complicated. I don't know about Nigeria, but in Liberia we do. And when you make things complicated, you create opportunities for people to use that complexity to extract rent, to steal. We're going to go on a mission of trying to simplify things. We're going to also make sure we're paying civil servants a living wage. We did the math, the arithmetic, what our teachers make by the end of the month, that funds are almost gone. So at the very elementary level, they will take money to change grades. Or if you don't pay police people enough to support their families, they will pull you over, right? Because there's corruption all through the system. But at the senior levels, we'll set an example and there will be consequences for it. And in our political institutions, when people, because the corruption is everywhere, we punish people. They lose their roles as an example of what will happen when we assume power.
All right, sounds good. Now, you've spoken passionately about the fact that Liberia needs to conduct a census before they can go into the election period. Have you seen anything on the part of the government that shows that they're serious about conducting this census, especially since it's so close to the elections? It's only 7 months away.
Correct. So the government has delayed conducting census, which is constitutionally they should not have done that. Now they're saying they're going to start the census process in October, and it should be concluded by February, March. The concern is that because of the corruption and the lack of integrity across the government, there are concerns that that process will not be conducted with the level of integrity that it should be. So we will do our best to try to monitor that process, to call out any situations that we think are inconsistent with the rules and regulations. But they have committed now to fund the census. It's supposed to start suggesting in October, albeit late, much later than it should have happened. And we just got to make sure we monitor it so the consensus actually reflects the reality of the change in the demographics of our country.
All right, talk to us about the present issue happening right now in Liberia regarding to a new bill that seeks the approval of the legislation before they can approve the retirement of electoral magistrates. Some are saying that this is unconstitutional and it's almost going to foster violence in Liberia. What do you say to this?
Well, I hope it doesn't fester.
Okay, just bear with us. I assume we get a message that we're going to be bringing that to you. I'm Alfonso Zienso at the Need England Bureau, to our own Samson To, SKTV, they are all there. And I assumed they are trying to work out here. Let's see, there seems to be some technical problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good evening. Welcome to Sacramento, California. I feel like I'm a native of California already. Yeah, California has been treating us so good at, But anyways, to those of you listening to us, following us via Facebook, YouTube, from Liberia and other sites, we want to say welcome. Please share the live as you come on, please and please. We are, as you can see the title on your screen, we are in a town hall meeting here with Mr. Alexander Cummings. We're having some good time. Last night, I know some of you saw the video on Facebook. If you listen to what the replay, we were dancing. We're telling, and let's be honest. During the day, I called out Mr. Cummings that Mrs. Cummings can dance more than him, but last night the move I saw him making, I said, I got to think twice. But anyway, I'd like to welcome my co-host really quick so that she can introduce herself before we get started here, please. Ms. OJ, please.
Give it up for OJ, guys.
Thank you so much. How's everybody doing tonight? I know it's been raining, it's gloomy, but I can guarantee you that tonight it's going to be a lot of sunshine because we actually have the honor of witnessing, hopefully, a presidential of Liberia. But my name is Ophelia Joy. My nickname is OJ. If it's easier, it's not OJ Simpson, it's not orange juice. It's just Ophelia Joy. But I am so honored to be a part of this event. I am so eager to learn more about what Mr. Cumming can bring to Liberia for a better Liberia. And I can't wait to hear each one of your questions and see how Mr. Cumming answers those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, OJ. You know, today, Umba, we're doing you service because we got a remix of everything. The Liberian made that me in charge. So anything you don't want to say, just signal me, I will tap it. But let's get started. Let's get this started. OJ says she's versatile, she can switch, so definitely so. But let's get started. We'd like to also thank our sister radio station who's also relaying this program today with us. Mr. Samson Toll from the LPR TV. Why don't you give up for Mr. Samson Toll, please? Thanks to Mr. Samson Toll and the entire crew. We've been working together throughout this weekend. I have to say, we've been knowing each other since But to get officially started with this program, like I said, if you're on Facebook and you're not sharing the show, we'll block you. No, I'm just kidding, we're not block. But let's get started with the program. We'd like to invite the ANC Western Region chairperson in person of Mrs. Washington. Why don't you give it for Mrs. Washington?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. How you doing today? You guys have to do way better than that. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. We're excited to have Mr. Cummings here with us. We've been wanting him to come to California because everybody asking about Mr. Cummings, Mr. Cummings. So he's here today to interact with us. So I'm so happy you guys joined us. We're going to have Miss Pastor Tim pray for us, and we'll go right into the town hall. I know we want to make sure we maximize our time. So Pastor Tim, please pray for us. Before anything successful happens, we have to make sure God is first. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Just want to welcome everyone to our church here, Friends in Covenant, and welcome you to the capital city of California. And as we pray, this great city that we're in, let's pray that one of these days, Liberia will have a system as they do in this capital city. Amen. 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 Hallelujah. Every head bowed? Yeah, you can stand, please, if you don't mind. Let us pray. Dear Father, we thank you for bringing all of us together today. Folks from different tribal backgrounds, might be different political leanings. But Father, most of all, we come here because of Liberia. And as we go through this time of question and answer, and as we listen to Mr. Cummings, Father, we ask you to make Liberia a better country. Father, raise up a leader that can take Liberia to exactly where it needs to be. So we thank you for this time. Thank you for everyone that drove long distance, that flew from other states and came here. Father, that those coming would not be in vain. Bless all of us and bless this time. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor. Interesting moments, interesting time. I know the way I see people things, I know that I can see so question. Wait a minute. I look at the people that were not serious because it's so serious. I see so much of seriousness in one place, and then my people are losing that serious. Yeah, just looking at everyone practice are coming through now. Yeah. But to be quite honest, all of you looking good too. Why don't you put your hands together for yourselves? Because in your way, you made your way to come to here. So thank you so much for being here. Just before we start with your questions, and should you have, maybe you say you need pen or you need paper or anything to write on or whatever it is, contact me or contact OG or just come to the table or ask Mr. Tool. We have pen, papers, and everything here for you to ask your question. So you can say, ASC people said you or you forgot about your question, you read it down. But just before we get to the questions and answer, we will have Mr. Cummings to do for us really quick, a quick overview, or you can call it presentation, of his vision, his goal, and what he intends to do. And we'll get right after that into the Q&A. While we're doing that, we will be reaching back there out to you to make sure we get you situated for your questions. Thank you.
And just a friendly reminder, if you have a phone, please put it on silent, especially when we're asking questions and Mr. Cummings is answering those questions. Just out of respect, if you can quiet your phone, that would be great. Thank you. Mr. Cummings, let's welcome Mr. Cummings, you guys. Put your hands together. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Good afternoon, Sacramento. We got to increase the energy level in here. Good afternoon, Sacramento. Good afternoon, California. Good afternoon, Western region. Wonderful. Good to be with everybody this afternoon. Before I talk about the platform, and I want to start by telling people a little bit about myself and my family. I was just asked about my wife and kids, so I realized maybe I should start there on the personal side, because some people think I just dropped from heaven somehow. So I always like to start my parents, my father and the Cummings family from Maryland. Actually, some of them from Lima, the capital area as well. But Maryland is the sort of the home county, if you will. My father was what you call an outside child, right? His father had he and his sisters, they both deceased now. And he has siblings much older than him as a result of that relationship. But he moved to Monrovia when he was a teenager to live with an older sister as a ward. And went to university, and then started his career as a cadet, got messenger type administration education and worked his way up. My mother only finished high school, went to CUMMINGS. Anybody went to CUMMINGS here? Yes, there you go, Wanty. And then she became a midwife and a small businesswoman. But I grew up in Point Four, and be familiar with Monrovia. And then we moved to Fiamma. I went to demonstration school there. Then I went to CWA, the best high school in Nigeria. So which high school has produced president, vice president, chief justice, CWA? And which house is going to produce the next president? Fox all the way, Francis all the way. And then I went to Connington. I finished undergraduate school in the US. I went back, worked at LBDI in Liberia as an analyst, came back for graduate school, wanted to get some work experience, and like many of you, the war started and it made it challenging to go back. I'm married to, I had three sisters. My youngest sister passed away in 2017, actually. So I've got two sisters. My mother is still alive. Mommy, she's 94 years old. Yes, thank you. I'm married to Teresa. We've been married for 40 years. We have two young adult children. I have a daughter, Ayo, and son, Boykai. And we have 4 biological grandchildren and 1 adopted, so we have 5 grandchildren. So that's a little bit about the personal side. The other thing is my work experience has been in Liberia with LBDI. And I've lived and worked in Nigeria, in Kenya, South Africa, the UK, and the US. I first started work with the Pillsbury Company in Minneapolis. And then I joined Coca-Cola, and that's where I moved around the world working for Coke. My last job, last 8 years, I was the top 2, 3 executive globally for the Coca-Cola Company, responsibility for most of the functions. So strategy globally, human resources, all of the IT functions, all of the technical functions, R&D, procurement, manufacturing, quality, all of that reported to me, the foundation, the legal function. And we did that very successfully for 8 years, and then retired and entered politics in Liberia. And as was said in the interview I did in Nigeria, we entered politics 2016, right? It took almost exactly a year and a half before the last elections. And given that length of time, we did okay. We didn't win, so that's not a good thing, right? But as I mentioned, we came in 5th overall out of about 20 candidates. We came in 3rd in Monserrado, ahead of people who have been there forever. We came in ahead of Liberty Party and Council Bronski in Monserrado. In Nimba, we came in ahead of them. So we didn't do too badly. And then, of course, President Weah is not performing well. I think that's just a fact. And therefore, we have the opportunity to replace him. And replace him we must. I think it's in the interest of our country, of our people, that we make President Weah one-term president. But in terms of our platform, our objectives for Liberia, I often say that the what we need to do is pretty obvious. There's the what and the how, right? And the what, if you talk to anybody who aspires to lead our country, we will all talk about the same what needs to be fixed, right? We may use different words to describe it. The order might be different, but the what we need to fix is very clear. For us, the priority, though, first is what we call infrastructure. So infrastructure means electricity, means roads, means running water, and it means internet connectivity, cell phone connectivity, internet. We need to use technology, right? Those 4 things we call infrastructure. The United States government, USAID, did a study, I think around 2006-07, somewhere in that range. I don't know the years exactly, to determine what they call the binding constraints that limited economic growth in our country. And there are many things that limit growth, but the 2 key ones were electricity and roads, right? And we got to fix those 2 things in addition to, as I mentioned, running water and technology, internet. We got to connect the country so we come to the 21st century. So infrastructure, key priority. Next priority is, investing in agriculture. We don't feed ourselves. We import everything we consume. We have to change that. So we are going to invest in agriculture, and as we go to the town hall, we get specific if you're interested in exactly what that means and what we'll do, because we're very clear on that. We're going to invest in education, and again, we'll make choices within the choices. We'll prioritize. We're not trying to do everything within education or in healthcare, and because the next priority is healthcare. You can have a good job, you can have an education. If you're not healthy, it doesn't matter, right? So we got to invest in healthcare, but even within healthcare, we got to make choices and priorities. We're going to grow the economy. All of these things, if we do well, we'll grow the economy because we have to create jobs. And one of the most pressing priorities today in Liberia is the level of joblessness. And when you see our young children on the street selling in the sun, in the rain, because that's how they support themselves and their families, it breaks your heart. And we have to create jobs so that our kids, rather than be on the street selling, they can be in school learning to prepare themselves for a better future. We can make sure we focus on those things. Then I often talk about we gotta engage hearts and minds of Liberians so that we can own our country, we can own the problems, we can own the solutions. Today we have a real dependency mentality, depending on others, our international partners, or the Americans. Well, yes, we need help, but we gotta own it first. We gotta recognize that this country is ours. Only we can solve it. We also, as a people, we tend to see the glass as half empty, right? We tend to be very hard on each other, very pessimistic. We gotta change the mindset. If you look at Nigerian movies, I live in Nigeria. In fact, my maternal grandfather was Nigerian and Yoruba. Nigerians will show the best of themselves, which is a good thing. We tend to amplify what's bad about us. We gotta change that mindset. We don't work well together. We fight each other. Even the ANC now. These are things we gotta change. We gotta find every reason to divide ourselves. Right? Whether we like it or not, we all from our country. That's the only country they can't deport us from. Right? I remind Liberians, I said it last night, I keep saying it, you don't choose your tribe. That's not your choice. What tribe you're going to, Gola, Giyo, Kram, Tele, Grebo, Congo, it's not your choice. You don't choose your gender, whether you're man or woman. It's not your choice. You don't choose the religion you're born into. And most people, the religion they're born into, they don't want to die into. 99% of people. And it's not your choice. Right? You don't choose when you're born, whether you're young or old. Lorenzo, I didn't choose to be among the oldest in this room. I mean, speak for myself. Lorenzo's a young man.
I'll be old.
But the point is, those things should not give you any advantage or disadvantage over anybody else. It's not your choice. Right? Part of why we need to unify, we need to work together as a people. And that's one of the things we have to change, because we don't choose these differences. And the only thing that should determine your success or failure in Liberia is what you do, the actions you take, the behaviors. You have to live with the rewards and consequences of your decision, not for those things you have no control over. That's the kind of Liberia we need to all strive towards developing. And again, these things are easier said than done, but we have to do those things. We have to focus on doing those things. I keep saying it's a broken record, but I will keep saying it. We can't keep doing the same and expect different results. Yes. And as a people, when you accuse the way people are stealing, which they are doing, they say, well, stealing been like for a long time. Yes, but is that a reason to keep doing it? No. Right? We gotta change. We gotta stop the roguish behavior. Right? You take the same Liberian people, you take us out of Liberia, you bring us to the United States, we'll follow the rules. Right? We'll go to work on time. We don't drink and drive. And we don't sleep with underage children. We don't follow the rules, right? So how come in our country we don't want to follow the rules? We will change that. Everybody gotta follow the rules. Everybody gotta follow the rules. This big shop business we gotta change. Right? Do you know who I am business? Forget it. I tell people, if you're supporting me because you want to come play big shot, you want a chance to chop, I'm not your guy. If you want to come and work and help sacrifice so we can change the country, come and join us. Because Liberia will only change because we work and sacrifice, not because we wish it, talk it, pray it. We gotta pray too, by the way. And since we're in a parish or we're in the church, let me say the church or religion has a major role to play in the transformation of Africa. Because we need physical transformation, meaning infrastructure, education, healthcare, but we also need spiritual transformation of the country. Right? We need to act and live by the precepts of the Bible and of the Quran. Right? And we need to engage Liberians in thinking about this country, about each other differently. And the things we will be deliberate about using, I don't know all the answers on how we'll do it, but we will figure it out. But the things that help people think differently about themselves and influence behavior, if you think about sports, arts, culture, music, theater, religion, those things that we're deliberate about how we use it and think about it, it can influence how people think about themselves. Sports teaches teamwork, right? Religion should be teaching integrity, what's right from wrong, right? Music, arts, and culture as a young country can influence how people think about themselves, their behaviors. So that we deliberately using these things in engaging Liberians to think differently about our country, so that together we can change Liberia. We have to do it together, but we have to be prepared to do the work. It's just not the talking. We also at a stage, as I said last night, for me, this has been like a marathon. Since 2017, we've still been engaging Liberia. We've traveled the length and breadth of the country to make our case. But we're coming to the end of the marathon now, right? Marathon is what, 26.2 miles or something like that. We're in the 25th mile, that's when the sprinting starts, right? So it's 10 months to go. Now we're in the sprint. Now Liberians gotta choose. It is not good enough to stand on the sidelines. And your choice doesn't have to be Alexander Cummings. I hope it is, but it can be George Weah, it can be Joe Bogai, it can be somebody else, but choose. Don't stay on the sideline. Politics affects everything. The money you send home to your family relatives, if the political situation was different, you would be able to send less money and less. We could channel the money you send into a diaspora fund, something we need to do actually, where you can invest in that fund, it will be properly managed and you can get a return. We can create an annuity for you. As opposed to sending that money. But the point is, politics will affect our ability to do that. The ability to save some of that money, invest in a fund, as opposed to keep sending it. Right? So the point is, politics affects everything. And this attitude, I'm not interested in politics, I'm not getting in politics, then, it's your choice, right? But that's a choice not to help the country. That's a choice. You're confining yourself to live in the United States. You're not giving yourself the option. We should want to develop Liberia where Liberians have the option. You should still, if you want to come here and live here, that should be your choice. But it shouldn't be because you have to. We need to develop the country so you have the option. Any Liberian can have the option, right? That's the kind of country. But if you just stand on the sidelines, and I'm tired of people just giving me advice, by the way. Advice is good. I want people to help me implement the advice. I'm also tired of people just criticizing. Yeah, criticism is good, but it doesn't help me much. It's good to know, right? How people think, and that's okay. But let's criticize, let's offer suggestions, solutions, and then let's help implement it. Right? So that, because again, if we just stand on the sidelines and just, throw jabs, the country will not change. And if you're just doing that, you use the right to criticize me. If not willing to come, I can't help. We all gotta get engaged in different ways. And I don't mean getting engaged in government necessarily, but make a choice. And in whatever way, wherever you're a professional, come help to do something different to move the country forward. Whatever that means, whatever that looks like to you. But the idea is just criticize, and we're good at our own. Right? That is not good enough. That will not change the country. You have to be willing to put some skin in the game. You have to be willing to make some sacrifice. People talk about the Singapore story, the Rwanda story. There were people who, in Singapore, there were 10 men, led by Lee Kuan Yew, who decided, you know what, they were in Malaysia. The Malaysians didn't like them because they were Chinese and Malays, if you know the history of that part of the world. And so they agreed for them to, and they decided they were not only going to break away, but they were going to transform the country, right? And they were, because they could have also stayed in Malaysia or whatever, right? They said, nope, we're going to go and do this. We're going to change the country. Same with Paul Kagame and Rwanda. They decided to do the work, to make the sacrifice, to make the tough calls, make the tough decisions, to punish people when they misbehave. That's what we got to do in Liberia. God bless me, I become president of tsunami, we hit that country.
Yes.
In the sense that we will do many things differently. Because we have to, if we want Liberia to move forward. I remind Liberians that we're not choosing among perfection. Muhammad not on the ballot, Jesus Christ not on the ballot. We're choosing from among humans, among, in this case, flawed men. No woman running this time around. But that's the choice. That's the choice you have to make, right? And that's what we have to choose from. It's a finite choice. These are imperfect choices, right? Most of the choices in life are imperfect choices, right? And this is one. And we need Liberians everywhere in the world to engage. The last resident, the one before the current one, was a Ghanaian from the UN, Liberia. I think he's retired now. He said, Mr. Cummings, between Liberians here in Liberia, Liberians in the diaspora, and your natural resources, you got everything you need to develop the country. Yeah. And he was right. It's a Ghanaian. But we gotta come together, do things differently, get different kind of leadership, different kinds of experiences, and be willing to make the sacrifice and do the work. So let me take some questions about any subject.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Let's lay the ground rules. As you've heard, Mr. Cummings, we are going to do some switching around here of mics. OJ, just before we get the ground rules laid out for the Q&A session, ALC OJ. If you don't know OJ, just ask me, I'll show you who OJ is. ALC OJ.
Right here.
Okay. If you get a question, go to OJ. Please don't shout from behind there and say, Ramadan. If you get a question, please don't put your hand up because I might not see you. Then you get there with me, I beg you. I won't go back to Arizona. So, this is what we are about to do. While Mr. Cummings gets set up for your questions, once OJ brings you up in this line, I will hand you the mic. You'll stand right here, and you'll ask Mr. Cummings your question. While you're headed to your seat, we'll give him time to answer. We have today, anything Mr. Cummings, anything Mr. Cummings that born, we'll give him standing to the we'll test him. Yeah, we set him up. So, these are the rules. Please, one at a time. Let's not form, any kind of, let's not block the room. That's one. Two, please, if you forgot, just like me, please put your phone on silence, on mute, or whatever it is. Please, we're begging you. If you have to take a call, just raise your hand, OJ will come to you. If you have to take a call, please tell us before you answer the phone. Don't answer the phone and say, well, I'm going to say, I'm in a town hall meeting. Please don't do that. When you step outside, you can answer the phone. And here's the last part. Just follow the direction of what this will tell you. So, please, the first person with your question, here's the last. You have one question, please. And you have 1 minute each, please. I beg you. If you let Mr. Cummings, you let all his accomplishment, that's fine. Please get to the point. And yeah, I see my friend looking over the high and water here. As you said, I thought I told you. Because Mr. Cummings has to go as well, but let's make it interactive so everybody else can have the opportunity to interact with Mr. Cummings. Do we agree? Yes. Now, if we agree, then you clap for yourself. So, let's have the first person for OJ, please.
And I have a timer here. 1 minute. We probably give you 8 seconds for grace period. If this alarm goes off, that means your question is done.
First person.
So I saw her first. You're going to come up.
Please come.
Say your name, where you're from, and your question. 1 minute.
Good evening, Mr. Cummings. My name is Peter. I'm coming from the Bay Area, from Oakland. My question is, when you win, what is the administration going to do about the human infrastructure?
Thank you. So our biggest asset in Liberia are Liberians, are the human infrastructure, the human asset. And so I think about segmenting it into different groups, if you will. There's the young people, and Liberia is mostly a young country. So the median age, I think, is 18 or 19, right? So very young. The median age in Africa is about the same too, by the way. Liberia is right there. And so we have to therefore invest in training and education for our young people. That for me is vocational training as well as the normal sort of academic route so that our young people have a choice. You know, one of the reasons why Germany is as developed as it is, and the Germans are known for their technical expertise. That's why if you're riding BMWs and Mercedes and Porsches, they're all German vehicles, because the Germans have a 2-track educational system. They have what they call the technical training, technical track, and they got the normal people that want to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, etc. We need to develop that in Liberia, but the point is to educate our young people, develop that human capital. Then there's adult education. A lot of our people, adults, are functionally illiterate. So we need to, and there's a way you teach and train adults is different way you teach and train young people. And to bring dignity back to that process. So adult education is another way we will focus to develop our human capital. But to do all of that is our biggest priority is to invest in teachers training. Yes. At all levels, because they say garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good teachers at university level, secondary level, primary level, you're not going to get good output. So we're going to invest in teachers to make sure that happens. And doing all of these things, we also got to make sure we grow the economy to create jobs for our people, right? So, great question, good first question, because we develop the human capital. Unless we engage and change hearts and minds, I talked about earlier, we'll think about ourselves. Education has to include teaching values, bringing ethics back into civics back into the system. And so, yes, we'll focus on developing human capital because ultimately that's what will sustain the country. So Rwanda, for example, has no natural resources, but we are developing the country because that's a human capital. And so that's something we do.
Section 1. My question is it lawful to sue the government of Liberia if you haven't sued the government for misapplying our resources? Example, COVID-19, stimulus package, and $11 million subsidy.
It's a great question. And somebody just came to see me the other day, and they were suggesting that under the Liberian Constitution, and I'm not a lawyer, so I hope I don't misspeak. I don't know if any lawyers are here. But under the Liberian Constitution, there's supposed to be a court set up where you can and should take government officials for whatever mismanagement they do in terms of in carry out their responsibility to lead and manage the country. So I think under our jurisprudence, I think you can do that. Is the answer. I say I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you can. But my real answer to that question is as follows. When we assume office in January 2024, one of the things we will do is we will ask for an audit of everything we're inheriting. So we will make sure the integrity institutions in Liberia, the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, the Public Procurement Commission, the General Auditing Commission, will make sure these agencies have the right leadership, the right people leading them with the right skills and experiences. We'll make sure they have the right resources to do the job, and we'll let them follow the evidence. We'll let them follow the facts wherever it leads to hold people accountable for stealing Liberian money. So we want to audit the past, but we want them to also audit our administration as we go along, so that we can avoid and stop and punish what's happening today. The level of impunity with which that is happening is unacceptable. And so, again, we will authorize an audit of everything we're inheriting, not because we want to wish on anybody. We're not going to say go audit a person. We'll say follow the evidence.
Mark, just send a text message. What is it?
Whatever the evidence leads to, they will bear the consequences of that. And that's how we'll begin to stop this impunity. I also believe that we have to revisit this War Economic Crime Court. So we can put this, we can close that chapter, we can put the hurt behind us.
Something right. That's not gonna matter.
Yes, I need based on
I mean,
evidence.
the funny thing is, I'm gonna be your get restriction and women talking.
That again,
Well,
address the issue. And once you set the example, once people know you're serious, once people know the rules apply to everybody, most people follow the rules. You got bad people everywhere, you got bad people in this country. When you have 99% of the people who follow the rules, they will behave if they know the rules, consequences for their behavior, and they know the rules applies to everybody without exception. We'll begin to solve that issue.
Thank you. Let's have the next question.
Good evening, Mr. Cummings. I'm Benedict Brown.
Benedict is a good name.
Just for a second, I'd like to play the devil's advocate and, maybe get tough a little bit with you. Your reputation has been impugned, that we saw a couple months ago by some political actors. And you were taken to court, and the courts have exonerated you. What do you do next? What would be the consequence? You've always said when we do things the same way, we get the same results. We don't get different results. Now, let me hold you by that statement. What will you do differently to those actors who took you to court just to slander your reputation. And then, if I may, when do we expect to see your vice president, your running mate?
Right. Okay.
Where are you from? Thank you. Oh, I'm from the Bay Area.
All right. So, so you're right in the sense that, unfortunately, people we were collaborating with decided they were going to lie on me. And as you said, just try to impugn my reputation. But we knew all along that it was not going to work because it was baseless, it was unfounded, it was frankly BS, right? So the court system, for 5 months, by the way, this accusation, for those who don't realize, was quote unquote a misdemeanor, right? It was tried at the magisterial level. Normally, the guidelines for magisterial court should be 20 days, the magistrate should dispose of. This stuff went on for like 5.5 months. Complete joke, right? But anyway, that's an aside. Look, to answer your question is, there have been some consequences already for, right? And frankly, some consequences you leave to God.
That's right. Yes.
Not every consequence you gotta necessarily act on. And but also sometimes it's good to strike when things have gone cold, when people least expect it. Right? So, but also there are times when you let bygones be bygones, and you move on. And I will not say which of those situations whether we'll let bygone be bygone, whether we'll let God do it, whether we do ourselves. We'll leave it open for now. But consequences, one way or the other, will happen. And let's just leave it at that. May not be the answer you wanted to hear, Benedict, but I think we'll leave it at that for now. All my vice presidents, look, probably likely sometime in the first quarter next year. Next year is next month of December. Sometime in the first quarter will be likely when we'll make that announcement. And I said likely, we haven't decided definitively when, but I think likely it makes sense towards the end of the first quarter. Is when we'll do. We might do a little sooner, might do a little later, but somewhere in there we'll name our VSB. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Just as a quick reminder, as you come up to ask your questions or question, please ensure that you state your name and where you come from, please. Don't be afraid, we're not looking for you.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. My name is Delphin Stonebridge, commonly known as the Bombshell. My question has to do with Louis Brown. Louis Brown has been up in the media talking about the December 17 rally in Monrovia. But a lot of the Liberians, including ANC members, are saying he's not the right messenger for the message, based on his past record of suppressing the Liberian people. At the time he was security advisor to Charles Taylor. He closed radio stations down, he denied people of rally, he gives Charles Taylor the worst security advice in the country. Today, he's the face of Team Cummings. Today, he's speaking about rally, something that he denied Liberians the right to exercise. What do you have to say about this?
So, I will say the following. Again, in no particular order, is that first is that Liberia and Liberians are the face of the rally. You know, one of the reasons why I'm not on the ground right now, but I leave here tonight. I fly to Atlanta. I leave Atlanta tomorrow afternoon. I fly to New York and back to Liberia. And I'm here because we made a commitment to be here on the West Coast for this event that has been scheduled for a long time. If there was a way I could have gotten out of this, I would have, but I like to keep commitments I make. But I will be on the ground and will be one of the faces of that rally, or the primary one. But also, Liberians who are suffering are going to be the face of that rally. And there will be, starting tomorrow, the voices, the faces you will see. But I also, you know, perhaps to answer your broader question, is that we are not running for president to be president of just one group of Liberians. We want for president to be president of all Liberians. Some of the allegations against people are just allegations. There may or may not be truth to it, but the allegation at this point in time. And you know, sometimes we make declarative statements. We say things as if it's completely true, or we get all the facts, and that may or may not be the case, right? Louis has been helpful, is helpful, smart guy, but he is not the only face of this rally. Again, Liberians are the face of the rally. I will be one of the primary faces of that rally. And the fact is, yeah, thank you. The fact is that Liberians are suffering no matter who speaks on their behalf. The facts are the facts. So we have to look at the ultimate reason and rationale for the rally. And the rally is to say to President Weah, in case you don't realize, you don't know, your people are suffering. You're mismanaging the country. You're not leading the country well. And that's the message we'll be sending on December 17th. And it will be resounding. It will be peaceful because we will make sure it is. We are saying to the government, it's your responsibility to make sure that rally is peaceful. The Constitution guarantees the peaceful assembly. It's our right to do that. And we expect them to provide protection to us. And that rally will be successful. And again, the face of that rally is all of us. It's no one person. But I will be back on the ground and we'll begin to take the leadership in calling Liberians to come and send a message to the government.
Thank you. Well, it's very, very good. Because now we're going to now pushing out to the table, we're going to bounce more grammar. So Ben is asking questions. Thank God we have one woman now. Thank you.
Okay. We want me proud of all. Yeah.
My name is Katie Brown. I live in Maryland and I'm flew here just to be here for this event. And this is not one of the first and the last event. I've been to North Carolina, I was in Baltimore, I was there. I have a call anyway, but I came. My question to you is you often tell us we should not do things the same way and expect different results. I have analyzed over the years the reason the speeding because we have to call it corruption. It's because of unqualified people occupying position that they have no basis to occupy. What would be the yardstick that you will use for presidential appointee when you shall become president 2024?
Thank you. The first thing I would say is that we have enough qualified Liberians, first between Liberians in Liberia today, and then when you add Liberians in the diaspora, we got enough qualified people to occupy the roles we need to fill in the country, in the government. And the reason why I start with that premise is because there's no excuse for appointing unqualified people, because they, as I mentioned, what the last UN representative said, between Liberians in Liberia, Liberians in the diaspora, and our resources, we have what we need to develop our country. So I set that as a premise. We got the talent, so there's no excuse for incompetent people. And so we will appoint people to positions with the requisite educational background and work experience, both of those combinations. We will verify people's academic background and work experience before we appoint them. We will not just take you at your word. Somebody was saying yesterday, trust but verify. Ronald Reagan, right? So we'll verify that people have the proper credentials, they actually got the earned degrees, not the picketing, and that they got a work experience they say they have before we appoint them to positions. We will appoint qualified people to lead the various agencies. Now, it's also a relative statement too, right? If you know that sometimes your judgment of who's qualified and mine may be different, but we'll not debate whether the person really got a degree or not. That's absolute. They gotta have the engineering degree or the medical degree or the agriculture degree or the legal degree. That we won't argue because they will have it. And we'll not argue that they got some relevant experience in the area. I mean, those are things we can measure, right? Beyond that is a judgment in terms of, was this person more qualified than the other, etc. But there's just some basic things we're not arguing about because we'll verify that the person has these things. Now, by the way, you can have the degree, you can have the experience, you can still fit in the role, right? But it's more likely you will fail if you don't have those one or both of those things. The odds that you will fail is even higher. So we're not arguing the basics, but then there's a relative and it's a judgment call. And I think we'll be more right than wrong, but we'll make some mistakes. I mean, I can tell you that for free. No leader gets it 100% right. You gotta get about 80 to 90% right. If you get it less than that, you will not be leader very long. But you will not hit 100%. Nobody does. Right? Or you gotta get it right about 80 to 90% of the time. You gotta make the right decisions on people, on situations. If you do it much less than that, you won't be leader very long. People will follow somebody else.
Next person, please.
Thank you. I'm Mr. Paulos. I'm just here by coincidence. Was actually visiting my family who actually are having this, sponsoring this CUMMINGS event. So we are here visiting family, and then this event's being held, so we just came to attend. So we didn't really come here purposely for it, but we used the opportunity to be here to attend it. My question is, according to you, which is one of your favorite quote, doing the same thing over and over and trying to expect a different result, we usually say what? Stability, right? Sanity. Sanity or stability. How do you reconcile surrounding yourself with some people of tainted record? That have been a very serious concern of some of us who look at you as the future. We have the past, we have the present, we have the future. You are supposed to be a reformer, but now you surround yourself with some people who have tainted record. How do you reconcile that in the new Liberia we trying to make?
So the new Liberia we're trying to create and develop, we have every Liberian included and represented. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the quote unquote taint or accusations are merely that. They're merely accusations and allegations. And I would say people tend to focus on the one or two or so individuals who quote unquote have been accused or alleged to have committed whatever they've committed, and don't necessarily look at everybody else that is on the team. I also remind Liberians that we are selecting from a, a finite pool of people. The country is what the country is. We are who we are. The actors are who the actors are. And we are selecting from that pool. And to try to look for perfection or idealism is not practical. Yes, we have many, many quote unquote untainted people, starting with myself and others. But we will lead Liberia, will transform Liberia with what I call the big tent theory, where we'll have many people of all different persuasions in that tent. Many of the people who are being accused or alleged, they were operating under one set of rules. Look, I've run major, when you take over underperforming enterprise, you don't get rid of everybody. You bring a few new people in, you set different expectations, you set different rules, you set different performance criteria, and you begin to transform that unit. In this case, transform the country. It will be a combination of all of those things. So we'll put in different systems, different processes, different expectations, different rewards and consequences. And I promise you, many of the same people who are being accused today will perform well, differently, but in a new system, in a new process. The way you get predictability, predictable results, predictable outcomes is not based on individuals. It's based on the processes you put in place, on the systems you put in place, on the monitoring you put in place. And if you do those things well, you will get predictable outcomes. No matter who comes in, if the system is working, the processes are working, you'll get predictable outcomes. And that's what we'll do differently. We'll not rely on one person. When that person did a job, everything chakla. We want to put systems, and I promise you, many of the people who are being accused, and again, there may be truth to some of the accusations, but sometimes there isn't, because people say so, and because enough people say so, people are so that might be true. Maybe so, maybe not, right? But it's about the processes, the systems, and it's about looking at the team holistically. Not standing on one or two people, but look at the entire team. And again, the country is what the country is. The pool of talent is what the pool of talent is. And we have to pick from the pool of talent we have.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cummings. My name is Miata Stella Herring. I am from New Jersey, coming from Monrovia to New Jersey, and here in California. I call myself the Cumming groupie. Wherever Cumming is, I am, because Cumming is Liberia, and this fight is about Liberia. Yes. Mr. Cummings, this question is for a question being asked from diaspora about your position on the ground. Many people are skeptical. Somewhere they still doubtful, even though they believe in Cummings and they want this change in Liberia. And we all know what we don't want. But yet there is that bit of skepticism about people don't know Cummings on the ground. I go on the ground. I try to convince them about what I see because I grew up behind you, my in-law. I speak to the people so I know what's on the ground. But yeah, they take my word for it, but they still don't believe me. So since I'm here and you here and you the horse, please tell us what's going on the ground so that we in the diaspora and even some people on the ground who's listening right now that say, oh, nobody knows Cummings on the ground. What has Cummings done for Liberia? Why are you here, Papa? Please try and answer some of the questions so we can put some of us at ease. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to my groupie Stella. So, you know, again, I would say that look, I remind people of the facts. When people make some of these statements, there's no basis. So let me just go back to facts, right? So we enter Liberian politics in 2016, the year and a half before the election. Almost everybody else, some exceptions, almost all the major players who were running have been around the country forever. So the former Vice President, President Weah, now Consul Bronsky at the time, the list goes on. And despite only being, I'm just starting with the facts, and I will talk about what has happened since. Despite only 18 months, Liberia never heard of me, right? We came in 5th out of 20-something candidates. As I mentioned, we came in 3rd in Maserati with Joe Weah. He's an organizer, not coming in Maserati, right? Only 18 months. I think Nima will give me 3rd or 4th. Prince Johnson, because he's from there, he came in ahead of me, but I think we did better than Liberty Party that have been around much longer in Nima in 2017. And I think in 6 or 7 other counties, we came in 3rd. So that's just a foundation, that's just the facts, right? When people say, oh, people don't know Cummings, only after 18 months we did what we did. It's been, you know, what, 5 years since, right? We do our own polling. There are 3 leading candidates today in Liberia: Cummings, Boaka, Weah. That's the choice, right? I mean, those are the choices. So when people make those statements, 99% of the time, there's no basis in facts. It's a sentiment. Sometimes it's actually the CDC people, sometimes the UP people make those statements because it's politically advantageous for them to say those things and make those statements, right? Do we still have some work to do? Absolutely, right? I remind people, I've been underestimated all my life, right? And that's happening again, but we're surprising. But there are a lot of political motivations for those statements that people make. Sometimes it's from ignorance, people don't actually know, because of their sentiments or whatever. But I know we are making significant strides. We're making progress, and I'm confident that if we keep doing the work, we'll be successful in October next year. The other thing I remind people when they say, you know, quote unquote, what has Cummings done? So you ask the question, so what has the other people done? What has President Weah done as president? What has the former vice president done? What's specific? People say Cummings don't have government experience. That is true, but what has the government experience produced for Liberia? So you don't want to experience just for experience. You want good experience. You don't want bad experience. You want experience that has delivered results, right? And the experience to talk about, we are the oldest republic in Africa and among the poorest in the world, poorest in the continent. That's the experience we want. I want to keep doing the same things and expect different results. It's not going to happen. So still a good question. We're doing the work. We got work to do. The facts are the facts, and we're making progress. And if you let them keep underestimating us.
Good evening, Mr. Cummings. My name is Irene Williams, and my husband is Gabriel Williams here. We've lived in this area for almost 30 years. I work in correctional health care. It's nice to see you. Over the past years, I have reserved my political desire of moving ahead, like being behind a candidate, because I've been disappointed because of what has been happening. But yet and still, just following you, knowing that you are from the corporate world, I really believe dignity in labor, and I see that you have been working. Many of the people that took positions in Liberia, especially like a president, over the past times, especially most recently, I see that it's like, I heard it, the parable that people go up there with empty bags and hoping to get it filled. I see that your bag is not totally empty, pertaining to finance. So because of that, the practical person that I am, I have been talking with friends and people that I know. But I don't know where this rumor started from. I want for you to please forgive me, because even last night I was talking to someone and she said to me, but Sis Irene, what is about this news that Mr. Cummings is gay? I want to be able for me to tell them that I asked Mr. Cummings and he told me, no, he's not. Because I remember hearing some recording that you said that you believe in the people's right to choose. I'm in healthcare. My mind has been renewed. It's open. I accept anybody. And where your rights extend is as far as where my nose is. Then where your rights stop. So could you please, just so that these people can get rid of this excuse. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for having the courage to ask the question, so that we can address it. So the first thing I would say is people should listen to this quote unquote tape that people talk about, and it's available, the whole tape, because I said nothing that is being alleged. So first thing, I encourage you to listen to the tape. The second thing, there have been others on social media who have admitted to starting this lie, because it is a lie. And so again, I'm sure people can send it to you if you haven't seen it, because this is a made up allegation. I'm not gay. As I mentioned, although they got people who are married and gay, but I'm married to Teresa, 40 years, we got children, grandchildren. My classmates here from here, I think, where will vouch for me. When people really have nothing else, people make up stuff. It is, and I use the word alleged deliberately because I don't have facts, but it's alleged that between the UP people and the CDC people are the one perpetuating this so-called lie. But it's not true, not at all. But thank you for getting the courage to ask. I'm not insulted by you asking the question, because people need to hear that is not true, and it's something that is made up. And I think I even heard that this is how vicious and malicious people are. I heard that, and I won't call his name because I'm trying to verify. I heard there's a quote unquote man of God, Liberian pastor in Houston, who was telling people that I went to him 30 years ago for him to pray for me because I wanted to get rid of my quote unquote gayness. I'm gonna find out whether it's true that he's saying this, and on that one there will be consequences. So, but this is how malicious and vicious people are. But you know what? I am undeterred. Right. Because I know myself, I know the truth. Family and people who know me well know the truth. And that will not stop me from becoming president of Liberia.
My name is Bendu Griffin, Washington. I'm here from California. Hello, how you doing, my Bendu? So I have a question for you because somebody on Facebook saying they want, yes, I want to hear from you exactly. They said, Cummings said he hate poor people, he hate the villagers, and when he become president, there will be no room in his administration for uneducated people, for poor people, and for people in the village. So I need to hear it. That rumor can start. Mr. Cummings said when people say they're educated, they must prove it. So the man taking it to say now to put on Facebook, now the person here, that mean that you saying you don't like people. So I want to hear from you exactly, directly, so you must let the people know. So when they carry the rumor, they ain't got to come ask you again because you will say it right here. Thank you.
Thank you. So just for clarification, the lady that asked the question didn't ask about educated or uneducated. She asked for qualified people. And you can be qualified, by the way, we're all having formal education. The example I used to like to use, so I used to run Coke Nigeria, and I used to use that example in Nigeria, because a lot of the women, the people that sold product in the markets, big distributors were women. And I used to always say many of them were not quote unquote formally educated, right? But if you said 2 naira plus 2 naira, they knew it was 4 naira. Yeah. And they actually knew their margins, what percent return, what margins they make. But if you put them the formal stuff, they didn't get it, but they understood their business, right? And that it can apply to any area. I use sort of business as an example because that's an area I know and understand. So again, this is where people try to use your words, your explanation, twist it for political reasons. How can I not let poor people? Most Liberians poor. I mean, it's sad, right? Most Liberians live on less than $1 a day. Liberia's a poor country. So that's nonsense to people. Somebody make that statement. But because you know what, we have denigrated education in the country. You know, and shame on us. And we should make no apologies for encouraging Liberians to get education. No apologies. No apologies for saying Liberians should go and get. And I mentioned earlier, it can be technical education, vocational, formal, but no apologies for Liberians. Not any Liberian can be president. I'm sorry. You gotta have the experience. You gotta have educational skills. These are facts that we shouldn't shy away from, and people try to twist it into some negative, some nefarious way, and that's what this person is trying to do. No apologies. Liberians should get educated. You should prepare yourself. And if you want a job, whether it's in the private sector, whether it's in the government, prepare yourself. Get prepared to do the work. There's no free lunch. Everybody got to earn it. And they can twist it all they want. We want qualified people in government.
Good day, Mr. Cummings. I'm Catherine Thomas. I live here in Sacramento. In 2014, Liberians were able to witness the
Ebola epidemic, and some of us were fortunate to be able to serve our people during that crisis. Over the outbreak, during the course of the outbreak, we were able to work with developmental partners and be able to identify some of the lapses in our healthcare system. And we came up with a master plan. But over the course of the years, we've seen that our healthcare system has continued to deteriorate, and that hurts us, especially some of us who are really putting a lot into the healthcare system. So I want to ask, under your leadership, how do you intend to help promote or uplift the healthcare system? What are some of the key strategies you intend to help in being able to come up with great strategies to help our people to not to benefit from the public health system in particular? Thank you.
Thank you. You know, talking about the Ebola crisis, you know, I'm very proud to say that although in 2014, when the crisis hit the country, I was mostly based out of this country. I actually went to Liberia in the height of the crisis because I wanted to help. I wanted to communicate that that's not a disease to be fearful of if you're careful, if you follow the rules, if you didn't embrace people that were infected, etc., etc. But we also went. We took a private plane that was our company plane, and we took supplies. We took PPE. We did things to help our country and our people in this time of need. Something I'm very proud that we actually did. We actually visited Guinea because, as you know, Guinea was affected as well. Didn't get to go to Sierra Leone on that particular visit. But on the question about the healthcare system, so as I mentioned, with all of our priorities, we gotta make priorities with any priorities. We can't fix everything in healthcare or education or infrastructure. We gotta make choices. Within healthcare, if you look at the facts, the data, what kills most Liberians, about 80% of the deaths in Liberia are caused by the following diseases, and this is in no particular order, but malaria, typhoid, diarrhea, hypertension, childbirth. That's a six.
Diabetes.
Diabetes, if I didn't call it. Yeah. Those are the things that kill most Liberians, right? 80% of people die from those things. Yes, people die from non-communicable diseases, cancer, heart, liver, etc. 80% of Liberians die from those things: malaria, typhoid, diabetes, hypertension, childbirth, so on. The way you solve that is primary health care, right? That means lots of clinics around the country existing and new ones where we need to build them with all the drugs necessary, with trained nurses and midwives. We need doctors too, but it takes time to train doctors, right? So midwives, these birthing rooms, etc. And if we do that, you begin to address what kills 80% of Liberians. Of course, some of these diseases got more fundamental issues. You know, diarrhea tend to be because running water, right? And so that's why running water is part of the infrastructure I talked about. We got to fix that. Same with typhoid, sometimes it's bad drinking water and that kind of stuff. So there's some other fundamental things. Waterborne diseases contribute a lot to illnesses across Africa, including Liberia. So there's those other fundamental things we got to fix. But within healthcare, primary healthcare is where we focus initially, because if we do that well, again, we address 80% of what kills Liberians. And then we'll get to the others. In time, we'll get to, you know, maybe a cancer center or whatever. But we got to focus on primary healthcare because that will address 80% of what kills our people.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Our next president for Liberia.
She actually took my question away. I'm a nurse. I'm actually in nursing. And the exact question that I was going to ask is what you just asked. And I am very happy with the answer you gave.
So since my question has been answered, I was just gonna go about to tell you in Sacramento what we did during Ebola when that came about. I work for a Catholic hospital, and I wrote a letter to our mission, our head of mission, and she was actually able to partner with Shirley Smaller. I'm sure most people here in the Sacramento people know her. Pastor Tim was part of that, and I didn't know that Pastor Tim was part of that until we were in the newspaper in the Sacramento Bee. But the hospital was able to, just from me writing the letter, was able to give at least $250,000 of PPEs and medications and everything. And I believe that helped Liberia. It was not specifically for Bassa, because I'm Bassa, or for a specific region. It was distributed from what I was told in the videos that we watched throughout Liberia. So I'm very happy that Sacramento was part of that. And because you have already answered my question, I just don't want to go back to my seat. So I am very, very happy with your answer, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me see, the one thing we will do differently as well, in terms of, all the different efforts from diasporans to help our country in different ways, is we would do a better job of coordinating diaspora affairs. We will create an office. The Israelis have a big diaspora, Jewish diaspora in the United States and around the world. And they actually have a minister of diaspora affairs to coordinate their diaspora activities around the world. I don't know if we'll create a ministry necessarily, but we'll certainly have an office of diaspora affairs so that all of these initiatives can be coordinated. Because right now, we have a lot of one-offs, and everybody means well, they're doing the right things, but we need to coordinate it and make it more systemic, more systematic, right? And organize it so that, maybe one container comes from California, from Sacramento. We organize it so that next quarter, a container is coming from somewhere else in the world or in the US. So then there's a continuous flow of this equipment or drugs or whatever, right? There is so much resources in the diaspora that we just need to coordinate. We need to put again, process and system in place, right? And then I hope the diaspora follow the process, follow the system. Don't say, oh, we're not doing it well, I do my own thing. I went to do it on the side, right? Because that's what we do. Our instincts is, oh, I'm not going to work in the system. Because if we do that, we get much more leverage from all of the efforts that you and others do to help Liberia. We just need to coordinate it, sequence it different and better. One of the things I'm passionate about, I was mentioning earlier about creating a diaspora fund. So for those of people in finance, you create funds. If you just Silicon Valley, right here, you got venture funds. You create a fund that diasporas can invest in, get it professionally managed, and then use that fund, for example, to provide housing loan mortgages, for example, or use the fund to invest in agriculture. But in something, and if managed well, you will get a return. It's like investing in the stock market, or you can invest in annuities in this country, right? But creating a fund where diasporas can, every month you can contribute whatever, we create the fund, and that fund is used to invest in something in Liberia, and you get a return. We don't have a housing bank. I mean, we're in the 21st century. And you can't borrow money, you can't get a mortgage in Liberia. In 2022, almost 2023, right? So that's just one example of what is possible, what we have to do. But when we do that, I promise you, your money will be well looked after. We'll get it professionally managed, professionally invested, and you will get a return on that investment, but it will also help the country in a significant way. And housing is one example, but it can be, we don't have an agricultural bank. So maybe the fund is used to invest in agriculture, whatever it is, right? But the point is we gotta coordinate the diaspora activities, coordinate the energy, coordinate the resources. It will have more impact
and you could get a return for yourself as well.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cummings. My name is Marie Maddie, and it truly has been a pleasure having you here this weekend. You've been really excellent at participating in all of the occasions. And personally, for me as this work, it's been an honor. So thank you. My question is, from my background, my education is architecture. I currently work as chief of facilities planning and support for the state of California. So we do a lot in our different professions for America and for the states we live in. And sometimes we only wish if we had a way that we could channel, our efforts back home. So in terms of my profession, what is your roadmap for manufacturing? Manufacturing in the sense that Liberia produce raw materials, like you say, iron ore, but we don't do steels, we don't do machines, we don't build the factories. We can, if we produce coffee, cocoa, we can make coffee, we can produce coffee. So manufacturing. In terms of sustainability, we live in the tropics with so much sun, and we don't use solar energy, sustainable products, wind energy, things that we can build infrastructure to use things that are natural to the environments that we live in. And then thirdly, infrastructure, right? So infrastructure in the sense of buildings, roads, right? Things that will make it so easy for us in the diaspora to aspire, to go home, to work, to live, to retire. So those are the things I want to know. What is your roadmap or your plan for those kinds of things? Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Thank you. Yeah, and I want to thank Maria and Bismarck for hosting us at their home. The food was good. The beer was cold. As was the music and the company. So I don't know if Bismarck is here, but thank you. Thank you. So Maria asked a few questions, but value addition was one of the questions, manufacturing and the way we'll be able to add value to our raw materials is the first thing we got to do is we got to fix the basic infrastructure. Because if you don't, for example, this is a real example, if you cannot consistently produce electricity at an affordable cost, your value addition will never be competitive in the market, in the global market. It will cost you more money to produce locally than to import. So before we get, and there are ways, because it will take a while to get electricity to where it needs to get to, so that I will come with some solutions. But to sustain value addition, to be competitive in producing, whether it's steel from our iron ore, or gloves, or condoms, whatever from our rubber, you gotta have basic infrastructure in place, meaning running water and electricity primarily, and it's gotta be priced competitively. If you gotta generate your own electricity to manufacture, now at 10 times you will not be competitive with the person next door who getting cheap electricity, if you will. So we gotta fix the basic infrastructure. But before we do that, and Liberians to do some of these things, by the way, we gotta create free zones around the country, zones where we can make sure that the electricity we're providing to that area is consistent, is relatively cheap, the water, the internet, and people can locate their manufacturing, their business in those zones. So we can create a few zones around the country while we fix the infrastructure, because that will take time. So you can start doing small scale manufacturing, small scale value addition.
And by the way, the Liberians today who are manufacturing stuff, they are doing, you can do what? Granola, hair products. Yeah, but so despite the constraints I mentioned, the on small scales, this is why I'm optimistic about our country and our people. Because people are figuring these things out, despite all of the constraints. You can find stuff manufactured made in Liberia there, right? But we gotta make it easier for them. We gotta fix the underlying infrastructure, and then we can, begin to add value to our services. I mean, our raw materials. We also have to understand sort of global value chain. So where do we have comparative advantage? Let me give you an example of rice, right? We consume rice as our staple. And I hope Isaac Toba is listening.
Yes, yes.
We need to look at the economics of rice production around the world. I think rice is produced in India, Vietnam, Taiwan, I think Indonesia. We need to look at their cost compared to what it would take to produce rice at scale in Liberia, and we will be competitive. Because it might be, and I don't know this for a fact, and shame on me, I should know it by now, but we'll figure it out. It might be cheaper to import rice and produce something else, right? Spices, for example, we need to look at the economics of spices. I think it might be cheaper because the arbitrage. So because rice is our staple, we can have a strategic reserve at every point in time. We can have 6 months supply or more of rice in the country, right? But we import and we rotate it. But it might be more economical. We may have comparative advantage producing something else, adding value and exporting. And net, the arbitrage will be better off financially, economically as a country. And so we will do the comparative analysis to determine what it makes sense for us to produce versus not, right? And we gotta be smart about these things. We gotta use the facts. We gotta use the data. We also gotta recognize that Liberia is a small country with 5 million people, right? So we lack scale. So this is why we need to take advantage of monetary union first. So when you add, I think Sierra Leone is about 7 million people, I think, 8 million. Guinea is almost 20 million. So now you begin to get scale, right? And if you add Ivory Coast, Ivory Coast is about 25, 30 million, right? So now you're talking about scale. And then when you add ECOWAS is 300 million people, although most of them in Nigeria. No, nothing against Nigeria. My maternal grandfather was Nigerian, so it's like. But the point is, when we think about value addition, we should think in the context of comparative advantage, in the context of the sub-region. And those are, sort of ready markets for our value addition. And that's how we got to think about manufacturing and adding value and that sort of stuff. What was your other question, Marie?
Sustainability, talk about sustainability, like infrastructures that we have fun.
Correct. So, yes. So, in fact, I was talking, I don't know if he's here. Yes. Talk about water. I don't want to take credit for his idea. It's a good idea. I want to acknowledge him. But when he was, this is why, again, we got all the smart people we need in Liberia. We just got to use them, including you, Marie. He made a kind of an obvious point, when you think about it, right? But a lot of countries that are successful today start with sort of raw materials they had in abundance, right? So he suggested coal in the US and in Europe. That's how they started electricity and manufacturing, etc. Oil in the Middle East, right? So his suggestion was, we got a lot of water, right? And a lot of rivers, waterways, right? We can use our multiple one to generate electricity, right? So it's more sustainable, right? You don't have the carbon issues, that kind of stuff. Even how we travel around the country, it takes time to build roads, right? But you can connect the waterways, you can dredge the ports and stuff like that. It's a wonderful, actually, private sector opportunity. So another Liberian who lives in Houston had a proposal about buying barges and passenger boats that could move goods and services along the rivers in Liberia, right? People, etc., right? That's something we need to encourage. The government doesn't have to do everything. Maybe the government can subsidize, but we gotta create a right environment. The government should be dredging the rivers so the barges can get through, right? But it can be an opportunity for people to make money, right? So move. So sustainability is about using what we have in abundance, right, to our advantage, and use it in a way that provides comparative advantage versus, I often say in Liberia, we protect this pepper bush. We over-regulate, but no pepper the pepper bush. but we still make it difficult for people to kind of grow pepper. So we'll revisit all the rules and regulations, we'll simplify, make it easy. But then I would say to the diaspora, don't wait for it to become perfect before you come home. We can't help make it perfect. Come take some risk. Can't help fix it, right? We got a great environment, right, for you to come and thrive because you have a choice. But diaspora can't help. Let her help grow the pepper, right?
Thank you. Just as a reminder, we're hitting almost 1 hour and change mark here. We got, I see your face is tired, of it. We still got more time when it's a Cummings, but we will be at some point taking 1 or 2 questions from our online listeners and viewers as well, as to keep it into consideration. So at the very last few minutes, we would refer to online to get some questions from there. And those of you who are listening and watching us online, just note that we're going to randomly pick questions. So please don't take it personal, don't get there, they won't pick you. So let's get to the next person, please.
The name is Alan Masikor.
Thank you.
I don't need this.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I'm an electrical engineer by profession, and I don't work in electrical engineering anymore. I work with trains. I help manufacture trains for Siemens. My concern is, we've been around for a while now. I say we because I consider myself a part of Team Cummings now. We've been around for a while now, and we're trying to get where we'll be able to bring maximum productivity to our country. My concern is preparation for leadership. If you've been in the trenches for a long time, if we've been in trenches for a long time and we're coming out, we are definitely sure that this time we're gonna make it. My concern is how are we going about putting a pool of technocrats together because time is fast spent. I can give you an example. I'm 57. I left from Liberia 1987, and I've been Russia, I've been Holland, I've been England, I'm in America today. When would I go home? I can't go home because the people back there, I can't trust them to work with. So now that we are about to ascend, how prepared are we? In terms of putting a pool of technocrats together to take over, because it happens that people want to be in leadership and they get to the leadership and they don't have people to work with.
That's true.
Thank you.
Right. They don't have enough people to work with. How are we preparing ourselves in that direction so that when we get to Monrovia tomorrow, we will not be recycling, like the brother said, we will not be recycling the same politicians. I'll tell you the truth. I've known politicians since I was a kid in Liberia,
Okay.
and they're still being recycled. They go, Ellen come, they're there. Joy Weir come, they're there. You know, we don't. I mean, it's fair enough. These people are Liberians.
Okay.
But we don't want to see the recycling continuing.
Thank you.
So again, I'm glad you asked the question, and it's another chance to address. But let me explain to you what happens in the United States, though, because it happens in Europe as well. But since we're in the U.S., and then I'll answer the question specifically about the talent. But if you think about this country, right? When the Democrats come to power, a lot of the same people come back. Fact. So if you look at the Obama administration, many of the people that staffed the administration came from the Clinton administration. Because they bring the experience, they have been there before. But oftentimes, the people that become secretaries in the next, whether it's Republican or Democratic, were the assistant secretaries before, were the undersecretaries before. Did I bring some people from outside as well? But it's typically, and then same with the Republicans. A lot of people that staff Trump administration, some came from outside, but some came from the Bush administration. You have a talent pool of people because you need some experience. I talked about the experience I have not produced, so you can't overpopulate with that kind of experience. But in this country, that's what happens. Fact. It's the mix of people you bring. It's the objectives you set. So if you were Clinton or you Obama or you Biden, it's what you want to achieve in your administration, and therefore the rules you set, the expectations you create, that is what generates the change. It's a combination of all of these things. And so we will have people in the Cummings administration, some will come from the EGS administration. If we can find one or two one from the CDC, we'll bring them in if they go there. No, seriously. Because oftentimes those people they made some mistakes, they made some learnings that you can benefit from.
Yes, sir.
And then you integrate them with some new people, new thinking, people with different experiences. It is that combination, but for all of them, you set the expectations. You're clear what you want to achieve. You're clear on how you want to measure them. You're clear on how you're going to reward them. You're clear on consequences, right? And it's that combination. So the idea that it will just be completely new people, that's not practical. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. When Sunak, the first Asian prime minister, he recycled people from the Cameron days, from some people from Boris Johnson, all of them in there. Then he brought some new people. Yeah. Just so we are clear, we gotta get out of this idealism. We gotta be practical. Idealism is good, but we gotta mirror it with some practical situation. On your question, we are working. So we have Isaac Vatoba is leading our policy team. I need to connect you with him. We don't have all the team members ready, but what I will show you, I use this example in that, the dog chase car, dog catch a car, they don't know what to do with the car. Look at this big car. When we catch the car, we know what to do with the car. So, but we're running out of time though. So you're right. Your questions is correct. We got, 10 months to election and then inauguration is another one. So about 13, 14 months, right, to sort of get the work done so we know what to do on day one. right? And we also will know the team. Because I'm gonna leave from wherever we do the swearing in, wherever we do it, I'm going straight to work. You also want to come for your inauguration ball? First of all, you gotta pay for it. We're not using one government penny to pay for any inauguration. And maybe I will come from the office and come there with your living. Before we go to work the next day at 7:30.
Good afternoon or good evening, Mr. Cummings.
There's my other group picture.
Actually about to call me Cummings' daughter. So, but if I'm Cummings' daughter, I'm proud to be Mr. Cummings' daughter. Well, my name is Samirka. I'm an advocate for people with disabilities, and also I'm a mother with disabilities. I brought my daughter here so she can be able to hear and see the vision of Mr. Cummings. Because I brought her in this country, and America is giving her the opportunity to be a mother of a child with disability, a mother with disability, have a child. I want to be an astronaut, and I want her to have the same opportunity as well. So, Mr. Cummings, you talk about people not born, people can be born to their gender, their religion, and also people cannot be born. People can choose a disability. And as we all know, Liberia is one of the poorest countries in the world, and 99.9% of people living with disabilities live in actual poverty. And as a mother with disabilities, I live all my life in Liberia, and I speak on behalf of thousands and thousands of people with disabilities. And a lot of them, mothers who have kids that have special needs, reach out to me every day. And we look at our country not being inclusive. Mr. Cummings talked about our infrastructural system. We have roads, we have buildings, we have hospitals that are not accessible to us. We have, when you talk about empowerment, a lot of us apply for jobs and we've been denied. We are qualified and we are competent people. And sometimes, and our employer will tell us, how do we employ you when the building has steps? It is not our responsibilities to make the building accessible. It is the government responsibility. So what will your government do when we talk about inclusion and empowerment for people with disabilities?
Thank you, Samika. And you know, it's a reminder to me that when I use my example of the Ebola rice and every Liberian has a right and you don't choose your tribe, I need to add, you don't choose your disability. It's a good reminder, and thank you for always reminding me of that, because it's something we are committed to. You know, in the ANC, in the CPP, we have a disability council on the executive committee of the party. This disability group is represented at the very highest level to show our sincere commitment. We're starting now as an example of what will happen in the future. But let me assure you that we will make sure that all public buildings are accessible for our disabled citizens. And we'll insist that not only are the government buildings, but as part of the building code, for anybody who wants a building that will have public access, that it has to be accessible. But beyond the physical accessibility, we have to make sure we don't forget, we don't ignore the fact that that community is just as competent, just as qualified, and needs the same level of attention as every other community. And again, it's a good reminder to me, even though we committed, we're not perfect, but I will say in this public manner, and know it's being recorded so you can play it back, that will make sure we take care of our disabled Liberians. And they will be an integral part of our country.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cummings. My name is Guy Reed. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And my question here is concerns of the illegal immigration in Liberia. My concern is about the national security issue that is being posed in Grangeda County. Few months ago, I was watching a talk show where two of the representatives were talking about the illegal immigration, to be specific, the Burkinabes, and said there are about 50,000 Burkinabes in the Grangeda forest mining gold and working illegally. And to me, it's very concerning. So I would like to know in your administration, what are you going to do when it comes to illegal immigration?
Yeah, so, I've heard some of the same rumors and speculation as well, and I don't have the facts around that. Specifically, the Grangeda issue you mentioned, the Burkinabes. But I think the more general question is all about sort of national security, law and order, rule of law. Those things are all fundamental. They're kind of foundational for any functioning country, right? You have to have a judiciary that works, that's independent. You have to have a population that understands the rules and follows the rules and know the consequences for it. You have to have a country where people feel safe and moving around, going anywhere, doing whatever they want to do, they need to do. And so those things are foundational and fundamental, and something we'll focus on in terms of making sure the whole security process is in place. We need to protect our borders. So our neighbors in the sub-region can come and go. We're part of ECOWAS. With an ECOWAS passport, with my Liberian passport, I can go anywhere in ECOWAS region. I don't need a visa, but you gotta go to the proper borders. You gotta go to the proper process. And that's something we'll make sure we enforce. A lot of our resources leave our country today and we get no benefit. And again, all of these things we're talking about fixing will require money to fix it. One of the ways we get money is to make sure we're getting proper value from our resources, that we're monitoring it, that we're managing it, that we know what's coming in, what's coming out. And so if indeed Burkinabes are taking gold out of Grangeda, that's something we gotta stop. We gotta put a process in place that they gotta come in legally, they gotta follow the process, they gotta get registered, they gotta pay the taxes or whatever, right? And then they can go ahead and take the resources. But yes, national security, and again, it's all about getting the right people in the right roles and holding them accountable to doing their jobs. And national security will be an area that will make sure that happens in collaboration with the other countries in the sub-region. Because it's a fact that our borders are artificial, they're porous. You got family on different sides, some people on the secure side of the borders. We gotta take that into account. That's why, again, the collaboration with the neighboring countries, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, is going to be important for national security reasons and purposes.
I gotta change my height. Hold on.
My name is Anc-Global. I'm from Brooklyn, living in Oakland right now. And I have a question for you. Your visions for the Republic of Liberia is a big bag. It's a big bag to present to the people and to accomplish. Not saying that it cannot be done. But this question that I do have for you is, this infrastructure that you want to provide for Liberia is going to take a lot of manpower and a lot of knowledgeable people. So would it be safe to say that you'll have to employ contractors? Because I did hear you say you needed contractors. So more than likely, them contractors may be foreign. And if so, what percentage of the working people would you mandate those contractors that they have to be Liberian?
So, yes, to develop Liberia in general, not just infrastructure, will require talents of Liberians primarily, but also will require some foreign skills and talent. That is just a fact, right? And we will, and there are rules on the books today about Liberian employment with foreign contractors, with the concessionaires in Liberia. So the first thing we need to do is to enforce the existing rules. I don't know what exact percentages are today. Something, again, we will find out. I need to know. But what happens in Liberia today is that we got a lot of the rules we already need. We just don't enforce it. We don't follow through on it. And so before we create new rules, new requirements, we'll look at the existing ones and make sure they make sense. And if they do, we want to enforce the existing rules, the existing requirements. There are rules today about certain types of businesses that only Liberians can participate in. We will make sure we enforce those rules. So to answer your question, is we will enforce existing rules. If we need to strengthen them, we will. I don't know the exact numbers. And the numbers may vary by sector because it needs to vary based on the available skill pool we have of Liberians, right? Where we have more of the skills, we will require that more Liberians participate. Where we have less of the skills, we will not be as stringent because we got to be practical about what we're trying to achieve, the ultimate objective. But there will be requirements about Liberian participation in every facet of our economic life. We make no apologies to anybody who wants to invest in Liberia, or even current investors, that Liberians have to disproportionately benefit from the growth in our economy. We no apologies for that, because that's the only way it's sustainable. Liberians have to feel ownership. They have to feel a part, right? But we can manage our economy in a way that it can be a win-win for everybody. It doesn't have to be a win-lose. Everybody can win. But Liberians got to disproportionately win because it's our country and our resources. So we got to disproportionately benefit. But we also got to recognize we need foreign capital and in some cases foreign expertise. We also got to recognize that we live in the same sub-region. So if we got iron ore, Guinea has iron ore, which is a fact. If everybody got iron ore in the sub-region, our rules cannot be too much more stricter than the one in Guinea, because then it will go to Guinea. But people can take their money where they want, for example, right? So this is why again, regional collaboration. Right? We need to coordinate our rules and regulations. Otherwise, the Dama will leave and go to Sierra Leone, or if the Sierra Leoneans are too strict, it will come our way. So that coordination is important because people will take the money where they can get the best return for the lowest risk. Okay. So those that will get everybody ask a question today. And we need to hear from the internet people.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Cummings.
Yes, sir.
My name is Gabriel Swain. I live in Sacramento here. I've been here for so many years, up to 24 years, I would say. From Liberia, my question has to do with education. I'm taking you back to education. I know you talked a lot about education, how you went from being nothing to where you are today. Okay. prior to coming to this country, I was into education, teaching, instructor. And then when I came to this country, I got into nursing. Now I'm in nursing, administration, and management. So my question to you is that, oh, let me continue the lady previous. Okay. When President Weah took over, I think in his first year, he declared free education, tuition free for public universities and colleges. This still goes on. There are many people who are saying, "Oh, well, the country was not prepared the country was not prepared for that." So my question to you is, what is the Cummings administration going to do? Are you going to enhance on this, stop it, or how are you going to improve it? What are you going to do for free education or tuition free? Because a lot of our children in the grade school up to the universities or the colleges are struggling. Okay, parents don't have money to send their children to school. Yet we're talking about college education free. So what can you tell us about this? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so I think when President Weah made the decision, the statement about free university education, it was purely a political ploy. Because it's not actually free. I mean, they get charged all kinds of fees, right? Even at the high school, elementary level, parents are struggling, as you suggest, right? Our focus has to be on the quality of education. Having free education that is no quality does you no good. In fact, it does us even more harm, because you get people with degrees, quote unquote, that are free, that isn't really free, but is worth nothing, because we have not invested in the quality of education. It is politically difficult to unravel something that is, quote unquote, being given to people for free. That's politically a challenge to actually do that. And so there are several things we'll need to do. In no particular order, we'll need to focus on setting minimum standards for schools in Liberia. And those standards perhaps exist today even. I'm not sure they're being enforced. But to the extent they don't exist, we'll make sure we establish them, and then we'll enforce the standards. Before anybody can open schools, they gotta meet a certain standard. Otherwise, we're fooling ourselves to think we got high school students who are educated or universities who are educated when they really aren't educated. And so we're gonna have to find the money to invest. We're gonna have to work. You know, Liberia in its past used to work with the church, used to subsidize, because the government can't do it all. So they used to subsidize the Methodist church, the Lutheran church, the Catholic church, right? Because those institutions provided education across the country, whether it was LTI or CWA or whatever, right? BW Harris, they were all parochial institutions that were subsidized by the government because they could provide educational at the right standards, and the government didn't have to do it all. We're gonna have to revisit those kinds of efforts. But the most important focus for me would be on the quality of education. And as I mentioned earlier, is the quality of teaching. So we want to make sure our teachers are trained and are well paid at all levels, university, secondary, middle school, and primary education. Because unless you got good quality teachers, you're not going to have good outputs and outcome. So it's about focusing on standards, it's focusing on quality, and whether it's free or not, again, hard to unravel something that's quote unquote free. But again, with all of the fees and stuff like that, I think the idea of free is a misnomer. And we started kidding ourselves, and that's something we'll have to revisit. But the focus got to be on the quality, and to the extent we can keep it free or at a minimal cost, that's what we want to do. Because the educated populace is key to sustaining
and growing our country and our economy.
Next person, please.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My name is David Weaver. And my question has two parts. I wanted to add something to Marie Mandy's question and follow up her question, what she was suggesting, manufacturing. Talking about manufacturing, company like Firestone has been in Liberia for centuries, and rubber is produced there, and then that rubber is taken away, and the final products are produced somewhere else, and then some of them go back to Liberia like tires, and Liberia pay more money for it, for products that raw products that came from Liberia. So all these things we bring into your attention. It is not our hope that during your 2 terms that you are. It is our hope that during your 2 terms, you are not going to complete everything. But I'm very confident that after your 2 terms, the next president that will follow you will now have chance to go back. So then it would be good to produce, as we produce rubber in Liberia, to manufacture the tires and all other final products of rubber there. That will boost employment. And I hope it is recorded somewhere. So at some time during your first term, you will look at the notes and review these comments.
Thank you.
The second thing I need to follow up is I work for State of California as an auditor, and then later on I moved into financial accounting. 27 years in total. I retired about two years and some months ago. Some of my friends telling me you don't look like a retiree. But the thing is, 2 or 3 years ago, an audit was done in Liberia, and the auditors were getting ready to report their to make their reports, and they got killed. They slaughtered them, and there was a statement from the government that the perpetrators were going to be pursued and face judgment. It never happened. And you talk about reducing corruption. You'll be able to make that part of your policy. But give me one moment.
No. Okay.
But yes. Okay. Thank you. I'm very glad that you made that exception, sir. They were killed. Nobody brought the perpetrators to justice up to today date. And that has to do with reducing corruption. If auditors go out and they get their audit report ready and they cannot present it, then nobody knows who are responsible. And then also the judicial system need to make modification that when people commit crime, they are brought to justice, no bribing of lawyers and judges. They are brought to justice and face the consequences to the fullest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let me just say I agree with everything you said, particularly the two terms. But yeah, no disagreement on the value addition, comment, the manufacturing. As I said, that's something we will look at, we need to do. And this is why we gotta fix the underlying infrastructure so that we'll add value. It can be at an economic price that makes us competitive with other producers of the same, products and services. But something we will definitely do and focus on. And look, this, and I don't like to spend too much time on President Weah and his government. I like to look ahead and focus on what we will do different. But this government has just done so much that is wrong. You don't even know where to start. All the way from the beginning when they took $25 million, they said they were mopping up money. They never explained what happened to that $25 million. They printed the $16 billion Liberian dollars. So the auditors getting missing, people disappearing, the census issue, the president going away for, spending on the list goes on and on. This is why we gotta make President Weah a one-time president. There's just so much wrong. The lack of accountability is staggering, right? And again, Liberians, we gotta do something different. But my commitment on the record, and I keep saying there will be consequences for people who don't obey the law, people who, steal, kill, rape. There will be consequences.
Yes.
There has to be consequences. I don't care who you are.
Yes.
There will be consequences. That's the only way we change our country. And nobody will come back. Nobody will send your wife, your children. So come. No. We will not see them. If you break the law, exactly. You're living in America. She just a levy, no begging yet. You break the law, you break the law, right? Nobody will come back because they're from breaking my family village.
Next person.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings, for coming to California. My name is Joseph K. I am from Tracy, California. Before coming here tonight, I have a friend in Hayward who and myself usually talk on the phone. You answered one of the questions tonight, but I will go further on that question. He said, Joseph, your Coca-Cola man is coming here, but I heard they say he's a gay man. He answered that question when Aaron William asked you, which is very good. My question right now is, what is your position on promoting LGBT in Liberia? And the reason for asking this question is because it is not part of our Liberian culture. It has never been.
We'll make it our culture.
Next question, in addition to that, wait, please, I'll make a comment. In addition to that, neighboring Ivory Coast, when the French government was trying to pressure Alassane Ouattara to allow gay, because they had a gay village in Trècheville, Abidjan. The president went to the Ivorian parliament so that they can be accepted. The commissioner of police went and raided that village. So tonight, when you become president in Liberia, what would be your position regarding LGBT in Liberia? Thank you.
Time. Come on, brother.
Again, look, it's okay for people to ask any question they want to ask. You shouldn't shout them down. I'm not worried about the question, right? I think I answered the question, and as he said, is not a lifestyle Liberians necessary support. Look, we got bigger issues in Liberia, like poverty, like the bad healthcare system, like bad roads, lack of electricity. That's what Liberians are focused on. Liberians are focused on getting 3 meals a day. Most of them, if they can get 1 meal a day, that's a good day for them. That's where we focus. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't know what else you want me to say. I'm not gay. Never have been, never will be. It's not a lifestyle. I support a Liberian support. So that's the answer to your question, right? And the focus should be on the most fundamental things that affect Liberian people, that affects how they live, how they take care of their children, the quality of their life. That's what we should be focused on. Not the sort of lifestyle or cultural issues. It's those most fundamental things.
Guys, this is the second to the last question for tonight. So let's get to it quick, and then we'll take 1 or 2 questions from the internet, and that will call the night. Please.
Hold on.
Hi, Mr. Cummings. Thank you. You have articulated yourself so well today, answering all of the questions. So I have 2 quick questions just to piggyback on 2 of your answers you gave. One, you actually spoke of the mindset, the mentality of Liberians, which I share with you. So tomorrow you are Minister of Cummings. What are you going to do for the youth of Liberia, especially our university graduates? That most of them believe that government should be the largest employer. As we see all of our university graduates, everyone wants to work for government. How are you going to change that mindset? Secondly, tomorrow you are President Cummings, and you have mentioned issues of policies, good governance. I personally think those are not Liberian problems. Liberian problem is actually implementation. We have GAC, LACC, PPCC, all the C's, but implementation is the actual problem. How are you, as President Cummings, going to change the precedents for past presidents as it relates to systemic corruption? All past presidents are seen educated, uneducated. They are all yielded to the systemic corruption in Liberia. How are you going to change that status quo? Thank you.
You didn't say your name.
I'm Kofi C. Moulton Sr. from Liberia, Broadway Moulton Corner, and I'm currently living in Sacramento. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the first question was about youth, and then next one about governance or implementation. So on the question of youth and government being the biggest employer, look, first of all, it's understandable why Liberians are fixated on this thing called government and government jobs. You know why? Because the people they see with a nice house, in a nice cars, are out of form of current government officials. So it's human nature. We're not bad people, right? It's human nature that when you see the people who got some prosperity, a government official, you aspire to go to government. And that's something we have to change. We must change. Not something we can change one number we change, because the private sector has to be the primary driver of economic growth and activity in Liberia, including jobs. Right? Government should be an enabler. Government should not be the one that creates the jobs. And so we will focus on, that's why I started my conversation by saying we will focus on private sector growth for Liberian businesses, Liberian businesswomen, businessmen, will attract foreign direct investments, will change the environment. Because when these university students you refer to, when they see opportunities in the private sector, when they see the private sector person driving a nice car and a nice house, living in a nice house, they will aspire to that and not to government. But we gotta change that paradigm. It can be done, it will be done, it will not happen overnight, but that has to be the direction of the country. I think from the history of our country, successive governments have many occasions deliberately and sometimes subconsciously have kept the private sector small. You know why? Because they're afraid of another power center to challenge them politically. I don't have that fear. To be successful, to solve the issues we want to solve, we got to enable the private sector. We gotta have Liberian businesses, Liberian businessmen and women who are doing well, who are making money, right? And we gotta enable that, we gotta support that. When we do that, university people, they will aspire to that. Because today, what they see is the government people doing that. Over time, we'll shrink the government. We can't do it day one because we'll create chaos. We'll create a hardship. But over time, is to shrink the government as you grow the private sector, right? Small, smart government, using technology, e-government, something we will focus on. We'll use technology to help us, in this transition. So private sector is the key. Question on corruption. It's a question of semantics. What do you say, liberal prime not governance or its implementation? It's semantics, it's both. Good governance means you implement. That's part of good governance. That's part of good management. Management is not an abstract, governance is not an abstract term. It's good when you execute, when you implement, when you put processes and systems, when you insist that people follow the processes and systems, when there are consequences for not following the processes and system. That is good governance. That is good implementation. So I don't see the two as being different. But on the corruption piece, many things we got to do to stop this corruption in no particular order because we got to do all of this. One is, as president of Liberia, I will not steal Liberian money.
Yes.
As a leader, you have to set the example. If you are stealing or the people around you, you're allowed to steal, everybody will steal. So we got to set the example, and there got to be consequence for people who steal. One. Two, we have to pay civil servants, nurses, we got to pay people a living wage. If you don't pay the teacher enough money, by the middle of the money finish, they will take money to change the grades because they got to support the family. The policeman will pull you aside, right? We got to pay people a living wage. They will not be rich, but enough money to pay the rent, buy food, pay the transit insurance, and maybe save something small. A little. Then when they corrupt, then we'll punish them, right? So we got to pay people a living wage. The other thing we do, I keep talking about this thing about consequences. When people steal, there got to be consequences. They got to be punished. They can't just resign or they just leave the government. No. We got to prosecute them.
Yes. Yes.
And assets that they've acquired as a result, we got to seize it. When people see consequences, they will behave differently. Then we got to simplify rules and regulations. When you make it too complicated, you create the opportunity for people to use it to their advantage. Then we got to use technology to help us reduce this thing called corruption, right? So e-government, we will implement that rapidly so that, again, through technology, we can try to reduce the corruption, have the right checks and balances. And the example I'd like to use about scientific, and it's just an example, it's illustrative. We put everything we consume today in Liberia. So for every container, we want to charge a flat rate. Easier said than done. We'll look at that, but and the reason why it's important, if you say, for example, every container that comes into the country is $1,000, right? Just for example, the math is easy. If there was 10 containers in the warehouse in the morning and all the containers gone at the end of the day, the custom official owe you $10,000, owe the government $10,000. Simple. If you only get 9,000, you don't need any investigation. 1,000 is missing. Simple, right? Simplicity is one way, and this is not esoteric. A lot of the Eastern European countries, when they came Estonia, and when they came from communism, they simplified the bureaucracy to help them get at this stealing thing, to make it easy. In that example I use, if you got a container, you know $1,000 you give me my container. I'm not negotiating with you, because I got computers, I got vehicles, all of these. No, give me my container $1,000. So when the citizens understand, when you make it simple for them, it makes it harder for the person on the other side behind the desk to extract rent, because everybody understands it's simple. So simplicity is another way. So it's a combination of setting the right example, of consequences punishing people, paying people a living wage, simplifying things, using technology to get at this thing called corruption. And again, the people gotta play a part. When you go home to get your passport renewed, don't pay somebody to go to the front of the line. I'm serious. Or to get your license, whatever, follow the rules. Yes. Right? And don't send people to come back when we catch somebody stealing from the government, because we're not listening to that. We're not listening to them.
Hello, Mr. Cummings. I'm David Moore, David Son Moore for the matter of fact. I live in Sacramento for the last 30 plus years. Also, my questions to you, you answer. Well, I'll ask it again because I want to hear it. Because it encouraged me, I was listening. Thank you. I want to say that I like your Napoleon syndrome, because I fall in that category. People like us, to make it simple to say, short people go for good things and big things. And so that would just break the ice. But
No.
What is your end game for regular folks, people like me, to vote for you to be president of Liberia? Just regular folks, what would be the end game? And my second question is not a question, but it's an offer to you. I know most people have give you advices here and there, and I don't intend to. I just want to offer my time. I see most of my friends here that are engineers that came up here and said things. They were asking some of my questions. Remember that if you need help, I'm an electrical engineer by profession, 25 years for Pacific Gas and Electric as a power engineer. If you do ever need help, we will work pro bono for you to make it successful.
There are 5 priorities we have, and we call that the what's. And then there are 5 things we call the how we'll do it. And those priorities are as follows. Our first priority is infrastructure. Simply put, it's electricity, it's roads, it's water, and it's internet and cell phone connectivity across Liberia. We have to invest in infrastructure. That is the top priority. That's the basis on which we can and will do everything else. The second priority for us is job creation. There are too many unemployed, underemployed, and unemployable Liberians. The unemployment rate is over 85%. And therefore, job creation is our next priority, creating jobs for the Liberian people.
Mr. So, no sound, no sound.
Now, I should be good now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Look, this is quite fascinating here. It is inconclusive here, but a lot of questions being asked there. I've been sharing, taking some note here. But let me get your quick reaction here. What is Alexander Cummings and the ANC is driving at? What are they trying to achieve here?
Well, I think they're doing what we've been asking of most politicians and political parties is to expose their candidates to Liberians, to ask questions, and so that the candidates can speak freely to the people without being filtered through a spokesperson. So I think that is a good thing. And I must give it to him, though. This has been a long process to be standing that long. Yeah, I don't know, but he's strong. I mean, he's showing that he's strong. So I have to give it up to him and the ANC, or the CPP, so to speak.
CP boys. I to give it up to what are you giving up now? It's how long do you think we want to see this unfolding? Not just only in the diaspora, but in Liberia. Do you think he establishing the connections? The liberal always say on this network, Comey is disconnected here. Is that a right path now to take? Will that elevate his political agenda, you think, 2023?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of the question about whether they'll continue to do that in Liberia, I think that's a question for Jonathan or Pat Josh to answer, because they're in the inner circles of the ANC CPP. But on a serious note, I don't know how people can have a fault with Arizona Cummings being out there. The stats, the data from the 2017 elections, as people try to interpret it, is that people didn't know him, right? That he was a stranger. So now he's taking that data and he's working on it. All right, people say I'm a stranger. How else do you work against not being a stranger than putting yourself out there and meeting people and talking to people? So I think he's doing what the people who say they interpret the election data as him being a stranger in Liberia, he's working on that to try to make sure he's no longer a stranger come 2023.
There are a lot of consequential questions being asked. This issue of this gay is yet going away. Do you think it is time for us to put this in a locker room and throw the key in the deep sea?
I said before, if you remember on this show, that the ANC's, but now the CPP's lack of a communication strategy is creating a lot of the problems where they take 5 steps forward and have to take 1 step back. And that has to do with everything from this gay issue to the Louis Brown issue to the issue with Daniel Che. I think because the ANC and now the CPP communication wing has not been out front and ahead of stuff. They've always been reacting to stuff. I think that is why that is allowed this nonsense of a gay issue to continue to be highlighted. And until, I saw how Mr. Cummings addressed it, and he's flat out said he's not gay. But is that going to satisfy a lot of people? Is that going to change the narrative? No, it's not. And I'm going to be very truthful to you. I have nothing, no evidence out there to make me to believe that Alexander Cummings is gay. There's nothing out there that would get me to think that this man is gay. But I think what the CPP and the ANC has failed to do is how do you pivot from that? And I was expecting Mr. Cummings, I think he kind of went to there a little bit, but he stopped a little bit because he has to be measured as a presidential candidate. And this is where I always talk about where the surrogates come in, because as a surrogate, you don't have the same kind of restraints that the political leader has, right? So a surrogate will pivot and say, worrying about what happens in the bedroom of adults
How does that make sure that Military 14 Hospital is accessible for everybody, even government ministers are getting involved in accident? What happens in between two consenting adults? How does that change your ability for your children in Lofa County to have access to quality high school and quality health and education, right? So they have not worked that angle. And I think to the extent where they can work that angle in their favor, this nonsense, sorry for the language, is going to continue to pop, because this is complete nonsense. We are trying to talk about how do we move Liberia forward? How do we ensure that our country is not highly ranking these negative stats about poverty and childhood death and maternal death and mortality and the lack of help and access for our people living with disability, right? We are not discussing that. People keep bringing and lowering this conversation about national governance to their perception of what an adult does with his or her life when the doors are closed. And I don't know when this is going to go away, but I think the ANC and the CPP has to be vicious and intellectually vicious about how they address this issue so that it doesn't always have to come up where the presidential aspirant has to continue to talk about this.
Something told you need to check your camera. I don't know why you think that something your camera is not available. How can we bring you in? Check your camera, go off and come back into the system. We can't just keep it blank, and that's why we here to back up. So please go look at your system. You might see yourself there, but you are not available to be added. And your administrator, you can add yourself, you think. So I don't know. Yeah, why would you think I would not want to put you there? You know, Amos George.
Yes, sir.
So you've been listening to your guy. That's the guy you support. How do you think he's doing so far?
He's doing quite well. And what I always say is that put your presidential candidate out there. Let him take this. Let it take this question, because the more if you try to shield him, it's not become a problem. But as Sister was saying, he took that rule a little bit, then he stopped, because when you are talking about there are more things, important things to talk about instead of lifestyle. He talked about poverty, education, health, all the things he's talking about. But then he stopped short of that. And Sister, right, and there's some of the things I would say to the people. You, the surrogate, will have to come out forcibly against these things. Because here's the thing here. Maybe I don't know. But we grew up in Fiamma. Cummings grew up in Fiamma, by the way. Coming in her rep, who fact where is Carrie Buffett of Sissy. That where Cummings grew up. That the woman used to Ayo, that's the mother they used to sell rice. We used to buy rice from that place. This man left out not gay. But he still, this Obe guy, he himself said that they had nothing against Cummings. So he just went and created this thing and said, I will chunk it to see it because Liberian people don't like gay. I will chunk it, and this is what today he has to contend with. But you know, and this is the thing I tell some of the surrogate is supposed to do. The general asked that question, it's not Liberian people lifestyle or gay. People don't even know the country they're living in or they come from. It's a gay minute just started. We was much on they used to point at certain people in Liberia. So I said, no, we know certain names the people call this, oh, that mean a gay male. We knew it. And some of them come out like they got a power on their head. The country is so holy. This is just a challenge to when people bring this thing out when they are discussing important issue. The main issue that confronting Liberian people, instead of being asking the presidential candidate, how are they going to solve this issue? They are not doing it, man. I said, it's people bearing, people personal lifestyle. They said, am I responsible for someone born the way they were born? Should I hold them responsible for that? If I was born my one hand cut, should I blame someone for it? That's how I was born. I should accept it. I always said to people, if you don't like someone's lifestyle,
oh, hold on 1 second. Yeah.
Stay away from that lifestyle that you don't like. But you got from them who are part of that lifestyle, but you want to come to prove to other people that, oh, this is dangerous. And so then you go check behind some of the poor closet, they got it from the member. What in that lifestyle? But they choose to do it because they have that, this is the way I don't like this person, so I will bring this person down with this kind of attitude. I think there are more issues to talk about. He talked about education. Look what he said about education. Do you know that someone went very well and said that Cummings said he don't care about poor people education? That's how someone that was. Can you imagine? The man is saying he was mentioning Germany. He said like when the German came, they had two systems. They had they had a vocational education and regular education. So those people want to be doctors or engineers went that route. Those people wanted to go to technical school and went this route. But yes, someone coming out to say, oh, Cummings said he don't care about the poor people. Can you imagine the kind of mentality? Someone is speaking here, not even left the state. Some people now misquoting the statement he said. He's talking about primary education. What is primary education? He's talking about high school, college. Now, how can you say when this man is saying we need to overhaul our education system because that's the only way the country will progress? And someone is saying, oh, he doesn't care. So you want this man to name a particular group that he's concerned about, or a particular group that you want to hear. When he said the country as a whole, we need to overhaul the education system. He talked about what? The government giving uncle-free tuition. But then he said, look at it. It's not actually free. But what is the quality of this education that you're saying is free? You don't think it would be better for you to have something better that you pay something little for than to say you have something free that it doesn't worth it when you come out of it? Which one you prefer?
And I actually have a problem with his response on education, though. I mean,
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know. But here's the thing here. And for me, I will say this thing here. The quality of education is very important than the quantity. Now, he talked about...
Is that any agreement with Sister? Because you...
No, I have some problem with some of when it comes to education. But the point I'm saying here...
George.
Yeah.
The camera is on you. Don't dance around it, please.
No, I will not say totally to what she said is correct. I don't know. Because my take here is we have to invest in education. We have to invest in education. And he said that at one point in time, because that's what the country move forward. We have to invest.
Let me break in CCA. So he does have
what I don't believe in is the total free education in Liberia. Because I see that it's not working. People jump in the street, but it's not working. So why
let me ask the question here. He is a teacher, professor, by the way, and he said he does have problem with the education, which is true. I have not heard from any of these potential candidates, or even the incumbent now who is seeking to re-elections, the education, the health, the infrastructure, to put bone on that flesh. Look, this amount I will invest in education, everyone's standard education. They just say we're going to have quality education. It's open, it's vague. What is the quality in that? No measurement, Sissy.
So I can talk about this just because they put it in somebody type it in the chat of our live feed. So it's not like I'm giving out proprietary information. The ANC puts in there, and I like that they did that. They're actually asking people to join teams, professional teams, that you can help out with engagement, governance, job and security, and education. I like that they're asking for all Liberians, for all worth of life to join that team. But when you look at what they put there for education, it's like providing basic literacy for citizens of all ages. I don't think that is fair. For national governments aim to be for the provision of basic education. That state creates winners and losers. But before I go forward, though, that Mr. George was onto something. Mr. Cummings' question that he was answering was about the qualification of presidential appointees. And he said you have to have a degree and you have to have the qualification, which is right. And somebody else went and told that. But again, to the extent that somebody, that person that was typing was a fake account, to the extent that somebody decided to elevate that person question to Mr. Cummings, it's again a failure on how you tactically deal with things. That's a whole different thing. Let's talk about education. For Mr. Cummings to kind of suggest that we have to pick between quality and quantity when it comes to education. I think this is one of the flaws that comes with when you run corporation, you try to run governments like that. If it was a private institution, yeah, you can do that. You can say, you know what, we need 10 Catholic schools only. We want to run quality versus quantity. But you can't do that when you're running the country. You can't tell me, you know what, instead of having 10 high schools in Lofa, we're going to give you one because we want it to be quality. So where would you put it? In Vanjama? What happened to everybody in Salaya district and everywhere else that can get to Vanjama? What are they going to do? Right? And so this is where sometimes this expertise from the corporate world does not transfer directly into governance. And so for me, I have a serious problem, because the question I was asked was about free education in universities and say post-secondary institutions. And Mr. Cummings managed to get it down to secondary and pre-college institutions, where he put himself in a little bit of trouble. He said, and I quote, "Our focus has to be on the quality of education, which is versus free." And he said it is difficult to take away from people that which has been given to them for free. My problem I have is he wants us to go back to when governments were subsidizing parochial schools. These are the church schools, right? Because they were quote unquote better. You are the government. Why don't you put money into making sure that public schools are competitive, if not better, than parochial schools? Why are you subsidizing parochial schools when we know that the subsidy that you give to these parochial schools, it's not even enough for them to lower the tuition rate for the very poor people to get in there? Our market women, my mother was a farmer and a market woman, had to work extra hard just to get their kids in these parochial schools, even though the government was giving subsidy. That is where I have a fundamental disagreement with Mr. Cummings on his plans, right? We cannot continue to provide subsidies for parochial schools because they are better, when in fact we are not investing into the public institutions to make them better, make them attractive to more qualified staff. The next piece that I have an issue with is Mr. Cummings talked about investing in teachers training. I think the question was asked about human capital and human investment. He talked about investing into teacher training, which is good, by the way. He said garbage in, garbage out was his exact quote regarding teachers who are teaching the wrong things. But my thing is, there are a lot more things you have to do beyond that. Just having a qualified teacher without a competent and vetted curriculum does not work. Having few qualified teachers that are not spread out all over the country does not work. Having few qualified teachers and very few schools for them to work in does not work. So I don't know if they're going to look at this as a holistic approach, but just picking one thing and say, this is what we look at is going to solve the problem, I think is a flaw analysis.
Yeah, and Sissy, this is that's the area. That's why I say I tend to agree with you on most of the things you have there, because even like Coddington, I think some years back were $3,000 US with government subsidy. So can you imagine how much that was a dollar or something according to $3,000 government state giving subsidy, and the tuition is $3,000 US. Can you imagine that? So I mean, what you're saying is right. Is something the committee listening to will have to take to go back to the drawing board to look at it. That is quite good. That was say you are right. And on this issue of the political schools giving money to these private schools, it has not worked actually. So I think the committee should try to not just get away from that. It's better to upgrade, to equip the public schools around the country, which of course, those schools are equipped, you got trained teachers, they will attract more students, even sometimes from the private sector, to go to those schools. We have seen that before. So I think that's the direction we should be focusing on instead of giving money to the private school. Yeah, you can subsidize, but those who want to send their children there, they should send. But the government schools, the public school is what we should be focused on, because it's what bulk of the people children goes to. So I think that's the way we should be looking at it, not putting more money into this private school. Let us focus our attention on the tertiary education, high school, primary school. Let us invest in those areas, because that way you got bulk of the people going to. I think that is the approach the committee should start looking at that direction.
And to be fair to the Cummings teams, though, Cummings team, let me not say Cummings, to the CPP team, because as we keep talking about Cummings and ANC, takes away from, it's kind of being disrespectful to the group that they form. But, you know, the CPP team, I think we have to also give them credit, right? They are the first to put their neck out there and say, here is our plan. We haven't heard from any other political party, not even the really established.
Including your guy as well?
Do what?
Including the guy you support?
Including the guy I support. I say, anybody, why you always got to push me against my guy?
Now, how you not do it? You know, how you do it? Yeah.
Man, politics, I swear. But you know, that is a kudos for me. That is people-centered leadership. And he didn't just want to put out an idea, but his group also put out a Google Docs asking people to volunteer to work on these strategic committees to help, you know, and I'm looking at the form right now because they had it in the group, right? So that's why I'm talking about it. And they ask about, you know, what do you do? What's your qualification? You know, what have you done in the area that you're asking for, so that they get qualified people to sit at the table and give them feedback, which is good. That is the kind of government we need to be running in Liberia, where people don't just assume to know everything, but they actually put out there a call to ask for help and listen to different people from different walks of life. So even though I'm pouncing on them right now for this very limited way of looking at education, I also got to give them credit that they're the first to put something out there and they stay asking for help. So which means this thing is not cemented yet. It's not yet built in concrete. That they are saying that they are flexible and they are willing to listen to professionals. So that is a good thing for them.
That is a good thing for them. One of the conversation now that we can now say comes to a closure is what I see the Cummings or CPP going to go back to have a conversation with Joseph Boyka and the other wing of the people. Yesterday we did hear he said it in 3 months. In fact, there's a vetting committee is in place now to for the vice president, presidential or whatever candidate. So now we know the deal is or Cummings and the ANC or CPP now, they will be going ahead. They will be having a pick in the next 3 months. So that set the tone. That's a different dynamics into this whole thing here. So you're going to have a CPP, Liberty Party, another wing, and ANC, Joseph Boyka United Party, and the ANC. Who's going to be the game changer here? My guess, they are talking to other folks, other political parties to augment their strength. Where you think the ANC or the CPP are going to be trending for vice presidential pick? And the man from the far right, you are ANC guy. What are you hearing? What are you hearing from your end?
I would not even address that question now, Mr. So.
Why
I'm upfront with you. I can't come out on that. What I can tell you,
I'm just asking, where do you think you guys can pivot to get a vote?
I'm not even, if I tell you grand, then you start swiping your head. All in the business will know. I am telling you that will be addressed later. What I can tell you is that what I can tell you 3 months from now, that's about what maybe we can say February, March. They can still be talked within the 3 months. That's why he said there's committee so that 3 months will be getting back to the public. So that's more time I can tell you on that. But to tell you, say, hey, this is where Mr. Comey doing this. No.
Okay, let me get your not an ANC view before I go to CC. Let me get your personal view as a supporter yet. Do you think he needs a male or female to make his vote up there, or what? If you were offering advice, a counsel to him.
Right now, I will tell you, if I'm offering advice, I will let Mr. Cummings and the team to decide on that.
To decide? Decide what?
To decide whether a male or female that will be the running mate of Mr. Cummings.
I'm asking you, what's your own view?
No, my personal view now is not important to that issue. What is important to me is who Mr. Cummings will pick that will help him to win the ticket. That's what I'm concerned about. And I look to him.
Who do you want him to pick?
Anybody that he trusts, that the Liberian people will work with.
Anybody is relative. Sissy, this guy is not, he's not answering the questions. I know it's on purpose here. Now, but we now know it means the door is closed. How dangerous it is. Any danger? What's the downside of it?
No, I take a different view though. I don't think the door is closed.
Yeah, I told him the door is not closed. 3 months
when
after.
When you listen to the press statement by Musa Belidi, the last time when the CPP kerfuffle was going on, the most recent one, he talked about how other parties can come in and they can have a conversation. They can have a negotiation. They can stay, but the Liberty Party is not going back to relitigate things that they did together when they joined the fresh CPP. But if the Unity Party is coming in, they have a standard bearer. They need to understand that there's already a standard bearer of the CPP, and they could have a conversation about anybody else. Maybe there's a way for them to negotiate that. And our own brother, the last time on this network, Jonathan, Assistant Secretary for ANC, also spoke about that. He says that they are waiting for negotiations to stay happy, because he said that the ANC is not, because he was speaking as Secretary General for ANC, not CPP, is not saying that the door is closed and Cummings has to be president, because to say that means you create a problem for other people coming in to negotiate. But you got to understand where Cummings is coming from as the candidate. Because if I am the candidate right now, then of course I have to start taking steps to cement my role. So there is a political calculation on his part as the candidate, and as he should, because I would not say, you know what, I'm going to wait until I can get a challenge, right? You can't be waiting for a challenge as the candidate. You have to be making sure that you're closing all those loopholes and cementing your position. But the political entity around you can be open to other people coming and having conversation. I can't be worried about that. So I think Cummings as a politician and as the now standard bearer of the CPP is doing just exactly what any smart politicians would do. You continue to move ahead and you continue to build a team so that you don't sit and say, "Oh, I'm waiting just in case somebody they want me to be their VP or to have a conversation." You don't do that. That would not be a smart political move.
Okay, I believe we're going to dive in this thing here much deeper tomorrow when we all dissect this whole interview here. But let me play this here and get you guys' reaction. That was yesterday's engagement.
That's what he promised, that although he was inheriting a government where there was freedom, I'm paraphrasing his words, there will be even more political freedom in our country. And so we're going there to remind Liberians of what the president promised. And yet, after 5 years, the country is worse off. And in this public manner, I want to say to the president, we are in his government. You are responsible for the peaceful execution of that rally, for the security of your citizens. You promised at that stadium, you would ensure that there was freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of association. And we're taking you at your word by going to SKD. We will be peaceful. And we expect your police and all your other security folks to ensure that rally is peaceful, because that is our objective, to peacefully share with Liberian people.
His point, his argument, he's not talking like a typical politician. You could see his tone, very conciliatory, yes, Mr. President, and it's like indicting the president, the government, literally. Hey, this is what you told us when you took the oath of office. This is the same place we are coming again. I think that was a kind of effective way of connecting and try to bring someone to memory. What we are doing is you started this. You introduced this occasion to us. You reminded us, you cautioned us about what we are doing now. In the meanwhile, the safety of your citizens, regardless of him as an opposition, remember it is your citizen coming. The safety of the citizens in your hand, because you are the president, the police chief, the Ministry of Justice. These people that take instruction from you. What's your takeaway from that point?
What Mr. So is that this is not something that people have to beg the government for. It's the government's responsibility to provide security for its citizens. in the peaceful assembly movement of people, that's the government responsibility. That's what the president took oath for, to protect and defend the nation. So, and President Weah himself, I think one of his tapes one time said, Ellen Johnson said he was tolerant to them, to the CDC, all the protests they did. He said it. And he said you are going to continue the same thing. But we are many occasions we're not seeing that from him. July 26th, students were brutalized, women protesting, they were brutalized. So he's not living up to that expectation. And nobody going to beg the president. What we can say, or what Liberians should say, any gathering they're doing, whether rally or protest, they should be responsible to that. It must be peaceful. That's the only thing I can tell my fellow Liberians. To air the view, it is the right. To be peaceful, it is also their responsibility. So the government of Liberia is not a favor someone asking George we have to do. It is a legal and moral obligation by the Constitution. And in fact, you know, people are talking, listening. I seen a clip from Kakatan. They talk to young people that they people say, look, the boss said, we're tired with it here. The only thing we want is to be peaceful. So people who try to narrow this thing, that it is for political gain, part of it, because what Mr. Coleman is the face of the CPP, the ANC. If they are organizing a rally, he, of course, by the way, should be the face of it. There's no other way around it. People who say it's to sell himself, yeah, you're right. But he's a political leader. If he's not there, who else do you expect to be there? He should tell people trying to get in the street and he's not there. Really? He is the face of that rally. If anything will go wrong, he's the one the government will come after. So he would be there. Those who say he want to say himself, I do agree with the people. If your candidate on the 15th, you say, yo, go to Capitol building, you'll go to the Capitol building, you'll be selling your political
I think you're talking to Sisi and his folks now indirectly.
No,
this is how he brings people into war.
He was a supporter, he's not member of that party. Let's get that correct. Am I lying? Sister, are you member of the LPP?
I don't belong to any political party.
Okay, so let's get that clear. So that's it.
But please respect him, man. We got tomorrow is the 12th. We got 2 more days after tomorrow for our rally. And I'm gonna ask our people. But on a serious note, back to what you were saying. I know Mr. Joyce said and Mr. Cummings said, Mr. President, you told us this. So, Mr. President, you told us this. And what serious country will we be living in if we don't trust the words of our president? That is the insinuation. Yeah. That we trust the word of you, Mr. President, and we know this is a serious country, and so we have to trust the words of the president. But I hope they also remember the president told them about CCTV.
For their own security, so you can't trust.
I'm just saying. I hope you also trust the word of the president on their piece. I also hope that you remember the president said, "I'm causing when I walk in the street of Maneuver Free." I hope you remember that some of you are not cause the president before you all be to the stadium. So if you're asking for the president to live up to his word, which one you want him to live up to? The CCTV and the cussing thing? But on a serious note, though, it's only, I said that the other day when we were on the show, it's not in a dysfunctional home where we go about praising the daddy for buying food for the children. Oh, our power food today we ate us, you know. It is an expectation that the government will respect the rights as established by the Constitution of its citizens. And I like what Mr. George said. Look, what we always fail to realize as Liberian citizens is that citizenship have rights, but there are no rights without responsibilities. And quite too often we focus so much on my right, we forget that there are responsibilities associated with them. The Constitution does grant us the right to free assembly, peaceful assembly. The responsibility is on us to not infringe upon the rights of other people by violating the laws. And so I will also think that when people go out there to assemble peacefully, whether it's a rally or however other people call it, a protest, whatever the name might be, acting president of the republic and the justice minister has granted the rights to Liberian citizens to freely assemble. I'm also hoping that they are cognizant of their responsibilities to make sure that the assembly is peaceful. For me, that's what I'll be looking for, that you can exercise your right while also ensuring that you are cognizant of your responsibilities.
Yeah, we are hearing unconfirmed figure that pretty close to, we are hearing is yet to be confirmed, pretty close to $60,000 from this event. I'm not sure whether tonight on was, I believe, was held in the church here. What is the political dividends in this whole engagement here? Will that resonate into something that will produce fruit, you think, Mr. George?
Yeah, so let me say so. We know Liberia is a third world country, but campaign is expensive. Nobody should count money out of campaign. If anybody may be thinking maybe that maybe the black guy folks, Unity Party, because they say
Why
in Nigeria,
are you not a good friend to the Unity Party?
Because they say the money is in Nigeria, they will go there.
Let me keep talking.
Oh, they say the Unity Party people say they'll get that money in Nigeria?
Yeah, in the quarter. But Mr. So, it is not a
the president here, so he has liberty to ride private jet. Forgetting to know, this is the whole thing that is so hurtful within the political conversations in Liberia. Every day can turn give justifications of wrongdoing, and the owner wants to question them when they are in authority.
No, here's the thing, Mr. So.
Hillary Clinton, they were going after her email as she was in president.
No.
Come on, Sarah Mayor, Anthony Weiner,
But Mr. So that is not a good analogy though, because she was a Secretary of State and she had access to classified information. That's why they went after her email.
Yes, and Joseph Boakai, former vice president, he still got state security assigned with him. He's now the standard bearer of a political party. He become the president of the country now because we have to look at all the moves. Tierra Gongo come here to raise money. He go raise money, the place open. Because what? If Tierra Gongo has secret meeting, we start asking, but who the man met with behind the why he meeting with these people? Who are these people? So I always say this, Cesar, you know it better than me. You are junior in politics. If you are an ordinary person, nobody cares for you. But the moment they say you are a standard bearer of a political party, yeah, they assign security to you. The CIA agent will be on you now because you are standard bearer of a political party. So you move everything, the citizens got to look at it. Because what I'm saying is, we saw that thing with George Weah. Okay. When George Weah tell helicopter to Liberia airplane, they say, oh, that was a man friend. That was his friend. Nobody questioned it. When George Weah won, the first 3 men who saw, the very monkey, Iboma D. 3D came straight through. The Senate ratified. The man from Burkina Faso got all these contracts. When we were making only to find out it was Bokos. So that is why it's important to know whom our standard bearer they are meeting. Because when they come to power, we want to see where they look at the contract going to. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not going to come to raise money. Terror going to raise money. Camping in every part of the world is expensive. And this notion that many Liberians have that the chairman will take the money, he puts the money out of his pocket and do everything. So I think we're trying to change that narrative that, hey, yes, I want to be president, but everybody got to chip, everybody got to put something in the pot, because when you do so, then I also become accountable to you people. You can hold me. But if I take everything out of my pocket and put it there,
okay.
I don't question to ask me.
Now we are already out of time.
So
go ahead quickly.
Real quick though, on the issue of the Joseph Boakai private jet stuff, and people trying to draw an analogy between him and George Weah, I think is a wrong analogy. George Weah is using state money to finance that, and Joseph Boakai is not in charge of state taxes.
No. I mean, before the campaign. I mean,
no, hold on. No, I'm not even talking about you. I'm talking about other thing out there. But here's what I have to say today. Having said that, here's what I have to say: that politicians in Liberia, I keep saying this, need to get people who are better handlers. Just because it is your right to do something doesn't mean it is right to do it. Just because it's your right as a private citizen to fly a private jet, Mr. Vice President, doesn't mean the optics are right for you to do it. You spoke, the Vice President spoke about the economic woes in the country. And you know, when he talked about the country being on autopilot, he talked about a lot of things that are happening. And I understand he did not use government money. I understand he did not use government money for this, but the optics are just wrong. It was the same thing that bothered DeLong, the optics. DeLong was using his own pay, but the optics and then the lied about it was not right. And I think ANC has been very smart about this issue. I saw some pictures where they were posting Alexander Comey standing in line, flying commercial flight. It's the optics. Alexander Comey can afford to fly a private jet.
Of course.
Yes, he can. He can even afford to sit in first class. I will tell you a secret. I flew one time going to Liberia, and Alexander Cummings and Mariah Kula were on the same flight with me. We flew from Morocco. No, we flew into Morocco. We flew into Ghana together, and he was not sitting in first class. He was not sitting in business class. He was sitting in coach. It is not that he could not afford to sit in first class, but the optics. It is his right to use his own money to pay for first class. But that doesn't mean it is right for him to do that. And I think this is where the politicians and the handlers in Liberia are not looking. When Cummings did that thing where he was in a hammock, it was a cultural stuff.
Yeah.
People came back and fired back. He said, okay, the optics was wrong. People have to be careful when you say now that you want to be a presidential candidate. You have to look at the optics of everything you do. Even eating cassava leaf when you go to how to call it place to Maryland, it's an optics. Should you be eating cassava leaf in Maryland or pan butter? The optics matter, but again, who asking me, sir? Why are you wasting my time for sir?
Guys, we're gonna go much deeper into everything. We're gonna review the tape, the questions and answer period. Who was more revealing to the media or more creating connection with other citizens among all of the candidates so far? Let me start with Amos George. Who do you think is doing much better, creating that connection?
Well, I'm making the connection, but I think Mr. Comey has made himself available and continue to make himself, even in Liberia.
He's more accessible, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in Liberia, you see, when he had the press conference, people they ask questions. Even he go to the town hall, he's there talking to the people. The last time I saw him, I think saw him in one of those districts.
Can we have boycott President Weir 2 hours having those sort of engagement? Because there was some raw, from what I see and what I know, there was some raw uncensored questions that were coming there from people real time.
And
Can we have Ambassador Boycott and the president to have such an engagement? You think?
Look,
well, the president is coming here. I don't know what that would be.
Well, the president is already here.
He's here. Actually, yeah.
And you have to be credentialed by the CDC, and they have to check that you've been paying dues.
It is so sad. Call, and they're telling me people that I should call to in order for LPR to be a
CDC got to approve their credentials to use the president. But I here's where I differ with Mr. George. I think Tewan Gonglo has been the most.
No, that's why I was saying that you are not hearing me. I said only 2 people.
Because right now in America, you have Tewan. He's in people basements. Even if it's 6 people, he's sitting there with answering questions. If it's 3 people, he's there sitting there answering questions. If it's 1 person, he's there. Tewan has been going into places where, somebody got a little breakfast. Oh, Mr. Gonglu, you in town? Please, I got a question for you. I got 5 people here. He gets people to drive him there. So he's been doing that here in America. He's been doing that in Liberia when he visited all those villages that presidential candidates have never been to before, and not those villages that are accessible by vehicle. In some of those villages, he has to get on motorbike to go there. So I will agree that, to an extent, Alexander Cummings has been doing that work, but Tier 1 is taking it down to a little bit granular level where he's going.
Everybody fighting their own crap. Okay, well, guys, we want to thank you so much, and thank you for all our viewers, listeners, follower. Now, we are here, LPR, the Cumming folks, the organizer from Sacramento, to reach out, and this is why we are part of this process. Even we're always available to also have engagement with all of these people. We I have called the embassy, called the party leaders, called communication people. Also, how? Because I know everything is a process. How can we be accredited? The president is coming up to this point in time.
The president, how long he been?
But it is why it is. But if for Unity Party, if just a boycott comes, Mr. Councilor Gonglo here, we had a conversation with him. It doesn't matter what I hear inside Liberia. If you want us to be part of it, we'll always try to reach out. Not necessarily they call us, but people got to open their doors. I mean, there was a conversation with the ANC folks to form part of this their gala event, and this is why we are part of it. So there's no limitation as to where we can go, where we can go. We do not have the status of limitation to where to go and where not to go. As long as we have the conversation, we have come to the terms and agreement, and we all live by it. Trust me, we will do it. Guys, thank you so much. Tomorrow, we will be here and go much deeper. What next? With Alexander Cummings.
I lost his nephew, Jefferson Koji.
You see here again. Now my uncle, please don't put me in problem. Don't put me in situationship. I listen to my uncle speaking kissy.